All right, if folks are ready, we will call to order the
Recording
March
in
16th,
progress.
2026 meeting of the Newton School Committee. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our fifth grader leading us tonight is Minnie Elit from Underwood. And your principal at Underwood, who's here, hi, says Minnie is a sweet, thoughtful, and hardworking fifth grader at Underwood. She always puts forth her best effort and sets an excellent example for her peers. So if you would like to rise, there's no obligation to participate, and you can start whenever you want, Minnie.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was great. Do you want to share anything about yourself or your school?
I love my school, I love my teachers, and I just love pretty much everything about my school. It's so fun to be there, and and everyone's so nice and welcoming there.
Wonderful. Great job. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Good job, Minnie. So we do not have public comment tonight, as this is the third and final installment of our special meetings to review the budget. On Wednesday, March 18th, we will hold a public hearing on the budget, and we will have public comment at the start of that meeting. Please note that that meeting begins at 6 p.m. Public comment will begin at the beginning at 6 p.m. So we will move to the consent agenda, which contains minutes from March 9th and March 11th, some updates to Title I and Title II grants. Is there anything a member would like to pull from the consent agenda? Got to keep looking at the screen up there. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
I'll second.
All right.
All kinds of room over here today.
Let's vote.
Freedom.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yep.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7 is a yes. Ward 8.
Yes.
Mayor Laredo.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda passes 9-0. So we will move right to discussion items, starting with the superintendent.
Okay. Just wanted to say we had a theatrical prop-filled discussion about the budget book, and I just want to say it's arrived. You can get your copy. It's online. And I just wanted to say a couple things about the 1 week delay. It is no small task to have almost an entirely new committee who have ideas about portraying our budget, but also we all had a lot of energy both to learn and to communicate more clearly to the Newton citizen taxpayer what we are actually spending each year. Simultaneously, we have been for 2 years submitting our budget to the National Association of School Business Officers in order for us to go through the meritorious budget process. If you look back in our goals for the last 2 years, the budget office wants this prestigious designation. And what it does is this national organization says to us, here are the best trends that we're seeing across the nation in budget book creation. And we've integrated those into the creation of this budget book for the first time. We will go through one more round of review. And I do want to just point out that the business office 2 years in a row did receive an award from ASBO for the first 2 submissions. And hopefully we're going to get the designation in the third. So if you notice some differences about this budget book from prior ones, that's a major one. And we're looking forward to receiving that designation. So I'm pleased to say that the finance team and everyone 1 week later has approved this for your presentation. And of course, we'll revise it as the committee makes more decisions in the coming weeks. So thank you. Tonight, we have our teaching and learning, our instructional technology, library services, and our non-instructional budget presentations of human resources, transportation, fees, and operating budget. And Stephen, if you just want to press play on that slide, just for those who may have missed the first two budget meetings, here is where we are evaluating options. We have an allocation from the mayor. We have a cost for a level service budget recommendation that I have made. We know we have to make some revisions somewhere within that sort of bookended scenario. I understand from the mayor, our allocation is 314. So we are discussing what is in the budget for this year so that people understand. But their presentations tonight are based on level budget. If the school committee directs us to do something different, we will come back and revise what that means for each of the budgets. We do have our public budget hearing, later this week. So with that, the Office of Teaching and Learning got bumped last week for a variety of reasons. And one of them was that we didn't finish student services until almost 9:30-ish. So welcome back, Dr. Gina Flanagan, for Office of Teaching and Learning overview.
Alicia.
Right up.
So Superintendent, thank you. I just have to be very clear with my colleagues, and I want to be very clear with the public. The allocation is the allocation. It is not going to change. So this committee and the department will have to budget for that allocation. And I think as we listen to presentations going forward, we all need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience from last week. I appreciate it. Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share the Office of the Teaching Learning's FY27 budget. The OTL budget is developed through a collaborative process through which our curriculum directors work directly with our department chairs as well as our classroom teachers to ensure that they have the instructional materials that they need in a wide variety of ways. It's also a very, as you know, a key component of Tier 1 is high quality instructional materials. Many of the requests in this budget are directly connected to our curriculum review committees. Though these committees, just as a reminder, they serve with teacher representations throughout the district who evaluate our current curriculum best practices and make recommendations for improvement and support. Our goal this evening is to provide you a clear understanding of the role of the Office of Teaching and Learning, but also to let you know what we're proposing this year, what reductions are required under a level service scenario, and what those reductions mean for our students, our teachers, and our district moving forward. So the Office of Teaching and Learning is often referred to as the heartbeat of the district, in that it works to ensure that the mission and goals of the district come to life in our classroom. And some of the ways that we do this work is, for one, we provide the high quality curriculum that is aligned to our state standards. We also make sure that we provide the specialized support for our bilingual and students on IEPs. We work to make sure that there is a continuous cycle for curriculum improvement. We provide professional learning for our teachers, and we support the multi-tiered system of supports. There's two levels of friction right now with the Office of Teaching and Learning. Our goal, as I stated earlier, is to provide high quality curriculum and support the systems around it. But this often requires a sustained investment over time. Historically, Newton has funded this work fairly inconsistently and often relying on the commitment of our teachers. The other issue is, as a result of this reality, this year's OTL budget is designed to maintain stability in our classroom and sustain the instructional work that's already happening rather than to accelerate improvements and innovations. I wanted to make that distinction. The chart that you see in front of you right now illustrates the funding pattern for over the last few years for MPS in the areas of curriculum, which we believe is below what is needed for a district our size to make impactful improvements to student outcomes. The gap between what the OTL requested in FY27, which is roughly 2.5 million, and what is being proposed for funding, which is roughly 1.6 million, shows a $918,000 gap. And this does not include the resources and professional development needed to update to high quality curriculum throughout our district through our review process. As you know, we adopted a 5-year, 4-phase curriculum review cycle, and it was designed to balance not only the teacher workload, but also the funding required to sustain the curriculum. This year, teachers engaged in extensive work examining the needs within math and physical education and wellness, while also piloting potential curriculum resources. This nearly 2-year process will soon culminate in teacher-led recommendations for curriculum adoption in these two specific content areas. Last year, we were fortunate that we were able to receive financial support from the city for the mathematics adoption, which allowed us to move that work forward. So you see the check there, we're all set there. At this time, however, funding has not been secured for the PE curriculum adoption. This presents challenges for a few reasons. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts recently adopted new curriculum standards for PE health and wellness. And while our teachers have been working diligently to revise the curriculum guides to align to these new standards, we are in urgent need of formally adopting a high-quality health curriculum. Such a curriculum would not only address issues of physical, social, and emotional well-being of our students, but would also ensure the alignment with state regulations regarding anti-bullying education and student well-being. Right now, our curriculum in anti-bullying is kind of fragmented throughout the district, and so we're working to create that consistency as well. Looking ahead to next year, we're very grateful to Mayor Laredo's support in helping us reach our implementations of our goals for Science K-8. And as a reminder, the district adopted Open SciEd as our core science curriculum last year, and we needed to phase the purchasing of those instructional materials over 2 years to meet the goals of that implementation. In addition, 3 content areas recently completed their self-study of the curriculum review process. Teachers work collaboratively to examine needs in grades 6 through 12 ELA, pre-K to 12 social studies, as well as engineering, computer science, and digital literacy. These teams are now preparing their findings and recommendations, which they plan to share with the school committee in May, with the hope that their curriculum needs will also be funded as well. It's important to note, once again, that the funding for curriculum review and new curriculum adoptions is currently not a part of the OTL's operational budget. And this raises an important question about how these essential instructional investments will be funded moving forward. For the past year and a half, we have recommended that the curriculum review cycle be supported as part of the OTL's operational budget to provide a sustainable and predictable funding structure. While the absence of funding for these curriculum adoption cycles would clearly affect our ability to provide high-quality curriculum instruction and professional learning in the ways we'd like to, it also has implications for our staff. The implementation of new curriculum is complex and it is time-sensitive. And if it is not fully supported thoughtfully, the fidelity and effectiveness of implementation can be compromised. Equally important, our teachers had invested a significant amount of time, expertise, and professional commitment in these review processes. When educators engage in a year-long study to identify improvements for student learning, but the resulting recommendations cannot be implemented due to funding limitations, it can erode the trust in the process and diminish the value of teacher voice in shaping these instructional decisions. And we've already heard concerns from teachers about how this work will move forward. So in this next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about the key priorities and investments for English language arts throughout the district. The requests that we put together are grounded in student performance data. They're also a product of our curriculum review cycle and also feedback from our teachers and literacy specialists throughout the district. Our goal is to ensure students develop strong foundational literacy skills while also improving their ability to read, analyze, and write about complex text. To that end, we have 5 key priorities for next year supported through our budget. First is helping to support the 6 through 12 curriculum review. As we said earlier, it helps to ensure consistency and coherence throughout the district in our classrooms. We also want to make sure that we're providing a consistent phonics instruction and intervention program. So this helps ensure that all students receive strong early support in reading instruction, which is critical for long-term success. And we also want to make sure that we're supporting a district-wide writing assessment. This is in response to recent MCAS trends that show as a district, we're not where we need to be when it comes to writing skills. And we know that writing is essential for life, but also for academic success across all subject areas. We also are very committed right now to supporting the professional learning for our literacy specialists. These are on-the-ground support for our teachers. They help to strengthen coaching practices. They also ensure that there is coherence in the curriculum, and they help to implement Tier 1 instruction throughout the district. So a very important priority as well. It's also important to point out that our students' performance data drives our work. So for example, our recent STAR and MCAS data indicates that across grade levels, our students are challenged in reading complex informational text. So you'll see there's a connection to informational text in our budget. So you can see that the amount requested and the amount funded for this year presents a 40% gap for the Office of Teaching and Learning in ELA. Items that were funded this year was the U-Fly Phonics training program. As you can see here, that was funded by NSF and one-time funding. We were also committed to supplying funding for our EL workbooks. I know there were some questions about the workbooks and their, what is the purpose? And it is such a big investment, and why are we doing this? But the workbooks are actually a key component to the implementation of EL education. Students show their skills with close reading. They write to written responses. Teachers can view that work. There's vocabulary work built into that. There's structured writing tasks built into the workbooks. And so they're considered consumables because they can't be used over and over again. So that's why we are working to support that cost as well. Some of the items that have not been funded this year because of the level service scenario is we had wanted to provide a more robust set of informational text classroom libraries. As we said earlier, that's an indication of our STAR report as well as our MCAS, that's an area of improvement for the district. We also had to forego the purchasing of No Red Ink, which is a tool that helps to provide students writing practice as well as provides the district a way to collect assessment data so that we can see trends in writing over a course of years. And that also helps to inform our instruction as well. So we put that on hold for right now. And then lastly, not lastly, just three more things. Professional development for our literacy specialists. One of the main things that we do to support the professional development of our literacy specialists is give them an opportunity to participate in the Massachusetts Association of Reading Specialists, which is a professional literacy organization across the state that also has about 300,000 educators across 99 countries. So it helps them to keep in touch with best trends in literacy and also helps them to develop their understanding of the practice as a whole. Second to last, we have a replacement of lost books that we'd have to forego. Just the nature of students and how they take care of their books at home. We are seeing the need every year to replace these books, and so we're going to have to forego that this year as well. And then lastly, the PK literacy curriculum. Unfortunately, that has been taken off the table, and as you know, learning is so cumulative, and so the earlier we can start to provide that support, the better. So that is off the table as well. And then lastly, professional learning for our ELA teachers this year. We belong to the New England Association of EL Teachers, and much like the other professional organization I just explained to you, the New England Association of ELA Teachers, it gives our EL teachers across the district an opportunity to learn from their colleagues and learn about best practices. So these are the big, I guess, big overview picture for ELA. Are there any questions that I can address for this particular slide? Or do you want me to do it at the end? I can do whatever you prefer.
I think we can do what you prefer. If you
Yeah.
would like, you want to go ahead? Well,
Sure.
let's try this. Let's see if it gets unwieldy. Victor.
It's very quick. For this slide 5, the EL education workbook, that 188, that is, correct me if I'm wrong, that is the printed workbooks from EL, not our own printing of the OER. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mika.
So also specific to the workbooks, have those workbooks already been purchased?
We did have some workbooks left over from last year, but we'd have to purchase new workbooks. Yes.
When does that purchase go into effect? The order?
Usually I would say before July 1st.
Okay, so there's nothing already allocated in terms of funds exhausted or commitments made with regard to the workbooks. They're best practice scenario for implementing the curriculum, but not necessarily already encumbered. Would
That's
that be
right.
correct?
That's right.
Thank you. Jason?
Lots of workbook questions, and thank you for walking us through. I have one as well. Is this sort of the run rate that we need to replace workbooks every year, or how many years is?
Yeah, it's a consumable, so that's not something that you're talking about the ELA workbooks.
But the 188,000, is that what we will spend every year on EL replacement workbooks?
Yeah, we tried other scenarios this past year in terms of trying to reduce costs with the workbooks. We tried doing it in-house, and it just didn't really work out. So just for the consistency of the curriculum, we think purchasing the workbook is the right approach.
Do you know why didn't it work out?
Because schools were
Was it
not
more expensive or less expensive or?
I think it was a situation where it wasn't that much big of a difference, but the bigger issue was the consistency of the implementation of the development of the workbooks. I don't know if you want me to go into that, but
No, that's all they want to know.
okay.
They don't want to know about the book.
All right. So I'm sorry, is there any other questions before I go into math? Okay, thank you. So Our math budget this year focuses on three key priorities as well. We're trying to lay down the foundations for the new math pathways, which, as you know, will expand access to rigorous mathematics for all students throughout the district. We're also looking to support the implementation of new curriculum materials and providing teachers with the resources that they need. And then finally, strengthening our math special support primarily at the elementary level to improve Tier 1 instruction across classrooms. You can see that the amount requested versus the amount funded for this year presents a 73.4% gap in math budgeting items. Two key items that we receive funding for is Amplify Desmos, which supports the new middle school curriculum and curriculum implementation and was funded through one-time funding. And then the Investigations 3 elementary workbook and classroom supplies, which were partially funded to support the transition to the new pathways. There is a lot of potential curriculum changes happening at the elementary next year. So we designed a soft launch for the new math curriculum next year at the elementary level, meaning that some teachers will elect to implement the new curriculum and others will wait a year as they participate in professional development on the front end. So this means essentially that we'll have to support two curriculums next year in that transition for the teachers who participate in the soft launch. In terms of what has not been funded for this year, first on the list is the Calculus project, which supports Black, Latinx, and low-income students in successfully completing calculus. I think you're all aware of the wonderful track record this program has had. It's had an incredible impact on the academic as well as the social emotional support for our students in this district. And it also has very strong data to support its effectiveness. If this is not supported, this would be a huge loss for our students, particularly in this demographic, which our data shows these students need the most support from our district. We are also going to forego ST Math. It's a Tier 1 instructional program that MPS has adopted. And last year we did a study with ST Math, and it was proven that for every 10% of ST Math progress a student completes, there was an expected added 2.46 star growth points on their final star exam. So very impressive tool, and our teachers and students find it really engaging. Next up is the vertical whiteboards for middle school classroom. This is an instructional tool that is used to support the best practices of an instructional practice called Thinking Classrooms. It has been piloted throughout the district. Teachers have reported increased student engagement. It allows students to think math, which is one part of the important mathematical practices. It encourages collaboration. And there was a question posed by school committee regarding the utilization of students in the STE program. Is there a way for them to make the boards for us? And the only thing I wanted to point out is that those programs do have a set curriculum, and I think it's a great creative idea, but the scope of this project would be pretty large. And I don't know if it would interfere with the already existing curriculum standards that are in place there. We'd also need to consider the material costs. There'd be installation requirements. You know, each classroom is unique, and then safety standards for this type. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know that was a question that was asked of the committee. We're also going to have to reduce some of the pre-K math materials, supplemental elementary materials, and then professional learning for our elementary math specialists, particularly as we get ready to launch our new math curriculum. So that's the update for math. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer those questions for you.
Jason?
Sir, thank you, Madam Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is, as of March 10th, Newton School Foundations may be supporting the calculus project for at least one more year, or is that not correct?
They have said those words, yes. I just want to point out the fee is actually $55,000 that they have given each year. There was a $65,000 formerly grant-funded piece. And so this is one of the reasons the budget book was delayed, because what is considered level service, right? So did calculus project exist before? Yes, it did. So you could say from a programmatic standpoint, it's a level service, but from a budgetary standpoint, when we take formerly grant funded things and we put them in the budget, it becomes a new ad. And so we are trying to show that here. There's also a 0.3 FTE for a staff person at one school that is funded in the budget. That is funded. These parts are not, these two parts. So I'm happy to put it wherever you want to put it, but there's this amount of money plus inflation for the $16K of trips that they currently take, which require more transportation. Transportation costs went up. So all of that's in the mix here. I mean, for the sake of what tags Gina's budget, this is her part of it, which should say 55K.
So, sorry, just for clarity, that
So they have said they will fund the same thing they have funded in the past,
not this.
which is 55K.
Yeah.
Wherever we want to put it.
Okay, got it.
Now, we didn't ask for a different amount, so we could certainly go back and ask for a different amount. We can grant fund, we can do however we want to do it.
I was just trying to make sure that if that is different from what I'm seeing here in this slide, which it sounds like it is, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. Okay,
Mhm.
good. Thank you.
I just want to also agree that we, from a thinking cap analysis and what we want to do to enable math, Calculus Project, we know, is on the priority list for that, and that money is fungible. So I agree with you, Superintendent. Wherever we want to put the 55 is okay with us. And if the amount that I believe was in the original presentation is 136, if we feel that it is responsible and prudent to net the 55 out of that 136, great. And yes, maybe that belongs in your side of the budget or maybe not. And I would just speak for myself in saying, on our thinking cap list, personally, I think the Calculus Project belongs near the top. And so hopefully we can figure that out. Sorry if I was being a poor listener, but I just want to confirm, what is the status of ST Math in lieu of this investment for next year?
We would not be able to fund it for next year.
Mika. So following up on Victor and Jason's calculus project observations, we did receive an email from Newton Schools Foundation leadership expressing in no clear, uncertain terms that they were committed to providing the funding consistent with their previous funding for several years going forward. They were clear in stating that those funds had already been received and earmarked within their budgets. So what is represented in your budget here by the 50,000? What does that specifically address?
All the costs, not the admission fee to the calculus project. So materials, the trips, the experiences that are not covered by parental fees without adjusting for inflation.
So 2 questions on that. There are parental fees that are collected, and the grant funds that we just discussed are secure. Has there been any consideration or attempt at this point to either reach out to families who've already been contacted vis-a-vis the upcoming program to increase their contribution and or offset further?
So if this is the budget that comes to pass or worse, more reduced, those are the types of options we would have to pursue, along with other grant options.
Or, well, yes, I agree. And additionally, there's the option of scaling back the program, maybe not having some of those field trips costly and scaling back accordingly. I think all that to say that with a program as highly regarded, as longstanding, it's not a new program. It's been in place for as many years as I can recall. I don't know the exact number, but this is a capstone in the district's commitment into equity and closing the achievement gap. So I don't want to see it on a list of things that we are willing to sacrifice in a difficult budget season. It simply shouldn't be there. And I question why it would be. That's not on you. That's on us. So we're saying take that off the score sheet. That's what we need to say in no express terms. Yeah.
Thank you, Tamika. Thank you.
Jonathan?
Thank you. Just quickly, on this page that's currently on the screen and on the prior page, in the center of the page, there's a total amount requested and a total amount funded. This page shows like, just how do I read those two numbers? I don't have my calculator in front of me, but it doesn't, is it the sum of just everything below it?
No, the top number is all of the requests for that department in mathematics for this year. The
Mhm.
lower number is the level funded number.
I didn't itemize everything that, yeah.
Okay, I'm just, so is the 117.7, does that, can I get there from the table below or no?
No, those examples are illustrative of the main things that are not funded.
Okay, so the 117.7 things aren't on the page. It's the gap items that are down below that are examples of things we would prefer not be gaps.
Right. I was just trying to highlight those key priorities or key instructional pieces that were potentially not going to be funded for this year. But there are other things that are on the math budget that make up that final number.
Okay, got it. So the 41,000 for Desmos, that is on top of the 117.7.
Well, that was funded by one-time funding. What does he mean by on top of?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, Jonathan.
I'm just saying, like, the 117.7 doesn't actually include the 41,000 for Desmos, for Amplify Desmos.
Basic
That, that's
I think-
incremental.
I
So-
think maybe a confusion is if you're trying to find, I think I've come close to come to the 117. It's mostly, it looks like 90% in that investigations 3 second line. Because
Uh-huh.
as she laid out, we've got it partially funded for those teachers who are persisting in the investigations 3 curriculum. And we are also making the $41,000 in Amplified Desmos happen, but that happened outside annual funding. That was from a one-time
Correct,
contribution.
correct.
So there might be one other small item to the tune of a couple $1,000s somewhere that fell off
Yes,
the list.
yeah.
But the majority of what's funding here from FY27 budget is that investigations 3.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Laredo?
So I very much appreciate the wish list of items you'd like to fund. On the city side, we have that all the time. Department heads come in and say, if I had lots and lots of more money, I could do more, and that's great. I appreciate that. But that's not what the situation we're in. And so, again, I don't want to harp on this, but I'm going to have to. This is all fine. We were presented with this last week already. We need to understand what the recommendations are to meet the allocation. That's the task forward, not frankly to have a list of all the things we'd like to see well above a 6.7 adjusted increase. I mean, if you had all these things in there, you'd be in the 8, 9, 10% increases in budget. I don't think anybody would ever think that's sustainable. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the idea that we're going to have, in an ideal world, we'd have lots and lots of things we'd fund, but we don't live in an ideal world. And so I just want to leave it at that. I'm going to really look to see what the recommendation is to get to the 314.5.
Jason?
No, I think what I'm appreciating in this conversation is the Thrive aspects. And so I do think from my perspective, when I take it, this presentation and what's missing this year, and we've talked about this in prior discussions as well, is we should catalog the things that get us to where we want to be. And we should have a long-term plan for that. And I think we're all aligned actually that this year, inflation put us in a bad spot. So I agree with the mayor on that side of the coin. I mean, we're not in a position, and I think the presentation should reflect that. Not only the committee saying that these are important things that we want to prioritize, but we also have to take stock of how we make, FY27 work. And so from my perspective, I hope, I know that's the discussion we've been having is we're going to have to look at that 5-year Thrive plan, figure out where these fit in the puzzle. It's going to be heavier in the remaining years because we're doing less this first year. And I hope we're having enough flexibility to get the must-haves done. I mean, it's hard for me to take that away from this list in your discussion, but But that is, I think, should be the objective, is to get the must-haves done this year and make sure these priorities sit on the Thrive list for future next coming years.
Thank you. So I want to be clear. I think that what we're talking about here, the red, some of the red is stuff that we have been doing, right? And it's going away, right?
Well, we haven't, the whiteboards would be,
Some of it, not all
Right.
of it, right? But like
Right.
we've been doing ST-MAT, like
Mhm.
bye-bye Gigi.
yes.
Mhm.
I know
Okay,
Gigi,
so-
yeah. He knows Gigi.
Thanks for putting a face on it.
Gigi's a penguin. He moves around the islands when the kids learn math. They like it. And the calculus project, right? So I guess my question is, in what way is this level service if things are going away in level service? Are there other things somewhere that we think is making up for this in terms of the outcomes?
So I'll just use the investigations as an example. So these, you are right, these are those things that we have continued to do, which we can no longer do. But can we still provide a mathematics experience? And we have some grant funding from, not grant funding, one-time free cash money to buy the new curriculum, right? So the question is, in the light of the fact that we are purchasing this other curriculum, and in a world of difficult, I mean, we can't even fund the investigations workbooks for this year with this, because all that stuff has been funded outside of our budget. And so you can see, that's why we have to show it in two different ways. And it's not to be, we're not trying to give a laundry list of what we can't do. You set us out on a plan with a strategic plan that said we would deliver certain things by certain time. And we need you to know the tools may or may not be there to do that. So that is our job. And my job is to make a recommendation of what it is that would get us the plan that you evaluate me on, you evaluate the system on. So and you've always been so good, Mayor Laredo, even as a city councilor, of saying, like, you say what it is that you think are the things. I know you're in a different seat now, and I know it feels icky to sit here and hear us say this, but this is your professional educators' recommendations for what we need to move forward and what to do things the way other high quality systems do it. We don't believe that we get everything we ask for, but you get nothing that you don't ask for. And so that is why I am asking for the things. Also, we've been asked, put these things in a priority status so that when we do have those times where there are additional funds, we can, they're out here. We're not searching around for them. So understand the landscape, totally appreciate where we are. I appreciate what you're saying. This is so that we are ready to roll when those questions are
So-
asked.
May I, Madam Chair? So let me be also clear. I've been very forthcoming because I believe in being direct about what you can expect in the following 2 years. And that's roughly just under 5% per year. So I think if you want some of these things, there are going to have to be adjustments in other places. That's the way budgeting works on the city side all the time. It's not fun. It's not pleasant, but that's what we collectively are going to have to do.
And that's what this committee will do.
Victor? And then you?
Sure.
Well,
Yeah, if you want to.
Appreciate it. I just don't want Ben's point, very fine point, to be lost. His point was that there are items within these lists of things we can't fund, which are not properly considerable as new initiatives. Therefore, if we're looking at level service, we should include them as funded in level service. If we're talking about cuts to those level services, that's where those items are potentially in danger of operating in the next year. But not when we're thinking about them as new initiatives, even if that means it's an existing program such as calculus that now has an additional cost. That's simply scaling for economy, scaling for whatever. You wouldn't call transportation a new program simply because it's increased by 5% from one year to the next. So just want to put that out there. Very good point for Ben. And,
I just want to say, in terms of financial accounting, when you move something from a grant to the operating budget, it is a new cost. So that is why that is here.
Victor?
I'll just beat a drum that I think a lot of people don't want to hear me say, but this is, in my opinion, a big reason why we need to start having so-called town halls on the future potential override conversation, but it may not be this year. My real question, Desmos. So for that one, I'm just trying to draw connections here. This is one-time funding. Yes, we're worrying about this year, but I'm thinking a little bit about future years as well too, to the mayor's point. If Desmos is one of those critical elements along with STAR that becomes for those who are doing the algebra readiness assessment, if you get to the 80 to 90 threshold, you have to back up into STAR and Desmos, right? Am I correctly inferring that if this were not to be funded after this year, then we would lose that ability as well in the ERA, or is that
No.
something? Okay.
So spoiler alert, we're getting ready to put forth our recommendations for curriculum for adoption this year out of the $2 million.
I apologize.
It's out of free
Okay.
cash.
So that's
Mhm.
that's going to be taken care of.
Thank you. That helped close the loop for me.
And I believe those are 3-year contracts. May I move on to the next?
May.
Thank you. This next slide just shows the impact of the level service in regards to other content areas, and I'll start with social studies first. As you can see here, with social studies, we've requested $112,800 primarily for professional development for our social studies teachers across the district, which would only allocate $7,500, which is incredibly low for our social studies program. This year, as a part of the curriculum review study process, social studies teachers from across the district have been taking a deep dive into their curriculum to build that alignment and improve practices. And we've received an inquiry suggesting that perhaps the professional learning costs requested for this year for social studies could potentially be done in-house at no or limited cost. And I just wanted to explain why that might not be the most effective option. About 3 years ago, Newton adopted investigating history as the core grade 5 and grade 6 and 7 social studies curriculum. And because there was no funding at the time, the curriculum was fragmented in the implementation. So teachers were literally implementing units one at a time, which is very unusual for curriculum adoption. And they also did not receive any high quality professional development. And so one of the things our teachers have consistently asked of the Office of Teaching and Learning is that we support the implementation of this new curriculum so that they can do it with greater depth and understanding as well as consistency. At the high school level right now, they are undergoing their curriculum review process, and they've also identified opportunities to strengthen the program. And while our high school teachers often collaborate with one another to develop curriculum, they still need supplemental resources as well as professional learning to ensure that their courses remain rigorous and relevant. It's also very important to recognize that right now, the social studies instruction requires teachers to engage with increasingly complex and rapidly changing issues that are facing around the world. And so our students are asking much more complex questions and asking about current events and social issues. And while many of our social studies teachers are excellent educators, they would even tell you that they are in the need for some strong support in areas from content area experts so that they can deepen their ability to engage in students in meaningful conversations that also illustrate compassion and lack of no bias. So our social studies teachers would like the opportunity to have professional development to enhance those types of skills that they're developing with their students. In the area of PE health and wellness, we have many aging equipment. Primarily, it's the mats that are used for student safety that need to be replaced. We're also in need of making improvements to our adaptive PE program, which services students on IEPs. Last year, as a part of our curriculum review process, you remember that you remember, but some of you were here for that. We did a self-study, and one of the things that came out of that study was a need to have a bona fide health curriculum, a consistent health curriculum, high quality throughout the district. And so one of the things that also is important to mention in regards to the health curriculum is that we're looking to, as I mentioned earlier, to implement in the health curriculum an anti-bullying component of it. And so that's an important part of that aspect. In fine arts, we have an ongoing need. I've only been here a year and a half, but it has been an ongoing conversation of how we replace and repair aging musical equipment. We've done a lot in that area in trying to fill in the gaps, but there really is no real strong sustainable plan for this. Additionally, we are requesting some teacher curriculum that would be used for making music in some of our music classrooms. So those will have to be forego for next year. And then finally, we're looking to streamline and align our professional development throughout the district. And one of the things that I think is important to note that we are contractually required to provide certain PD to all of our teachers within their first 5 years of service to the district. And within that required PD, there are 5 pedagogical components to it. So they have to be trained on instructional technology, culturally responsive instruction, anti-racism, universal design for learning, and SEL. And given the scope of that PD, and that there are over 350 teachers currently who are in that first 5 years of that cycle, we're very limited to provide this support internally. Our new director of professional learning, Matt Coleman, he is working to fill that gap wherever we can, but we are contractually obligated to provide that professional development. So this is the overview of these 4 content areas. I didn't know if there was any questions before I move on
I want
to.
to understand the professional development
Sure.
much more carefully. So we hired someone in charge of professional development,
We did.
and when did we do that?
They started this year.
This year?
Yep,
Okay.
he just
And,
started.
when do you expect they're going to be able to take all the PD in-house?
I don't have an exact number for that. I just know that we have a high volume of teachers and very limited people to be able to do all of those 5 areas that I just mentioned to you. But he is making some headway in trying to find people within the district that could support that PD.
So we have folks in the district. Is it a matter of paying them stipends to do the work?
In some cases, yes.
Okay, and I think we have exceptionally well-qualified teachers in the district. So,
agree.
well, why, I mean, he's been here now for 8 months. Why can't we do, what are we spending $400,000 for?
So in professional development, there's a lot of different things that go into it. Our Thrive budget is in the professional learning budget, which is our PD day for all of our teachers that happens on that November date. We also have to commit to the mentoring and mentee program for our new teachers. So that's also a regulated.
Let me stop
Yep.
you there. How much of that is spent outside the district? Of that 400,000, how much is going to outside vendors or providers?
Well, Thrive is roughly
In-house
200.
and out-house. I mean, we can certainly tell you that, but Mayor Laredo, the average conference that someone is sent to out of house is about $400 per person per day. $450,000 for 2,500 educators. Let's not even say all our 3,500. That's $180 a year per person for all the things that they do. Elementary teachers teach 5 content areas. So I just want to say to you, like, one man cannot be all of those things. He cannot be the math PD, he cannot be the science PD, and all those things. He can coordinate it, write grants for it, he can do all that, plus the mentoring and all those other pieces. So I just want you to know, it's like
we've-
not one guy's job
But
to-
we've created an extra position in the
by
budget.
getting rid of 3 other ones. Yes.
We created this position specifically for professional development, and I'm certainly hoping we can get as much of that in district as possible. And it would be helpful to have over a 2, 3, 4-year period, a plan to do that with specific goals.
We actually do have that.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it. Thank you.
I can certainly get you that too, Mayor Laredo. Right. Last on my presentation tonight, I want to also talk about the impact of level service to our high school budget. As you know, our high schools depend heavily on their per pupil budget to satisfy a wide variety of academic, social, and safety needs for their students. However, the OTL also provides annual funding to both high schools to help fund items such as their library databases, as well as software for world language and sciences. There was a request to give you specific examples, so I'd like to include those now. So for example, in the library category, Gale, Infobase, EBSCO, DIL Language Lab, and a wide variety of science software that allows our students to participate in virtual simulations is what this funding is used for. For example, the past 2 years, the high school department chairs have been working with their departments to utilize Pivot Interactives, which is designed to provide that simulation that I just spoke of, and also is a critical point to their plan for their common assessments. These databases, I don't need to really explain to you, but they're a really important part of the students' work. They provide students the opportunity to discern credible scholarly sources. They help with their development of research and also give them that real-world application. So this is an area where we have potentially had to reduce in order to make sure that we meet our level of service, and this is in support of the high schools. Are there any questions about the high school piece?
Linda has a question. Go ahead, Linda.
Thanks, Alicia. If you don't mind going back to the prior slide, my question is, when we look at those gaps, the biggest gap being in social studies, I was curious how, what was the thinking you used to determine where you were going to put the funds? Because I look at the social studies ones and I think social studies is a core class and it is the area with the largest gap. So I was curious the thinking behind where you place those dollars that we do have.
Sure. So when our team got together, and when I mean our team, the Office of Teaching and Learning and our full team of directors, we obviously want to make sure that we are funding as much as we can in every content area. But ELA and math right now, as you know, are a district priority. There's data to show that those are areas that we need to improve upon. And so that's why we focused on making sure that those two areas were primarily funded. The other thing I want to mention, just as of, I think last week, our director of social studies, Eva Hughes, has been doing an amazing job in working to secure grants to kind of supplement some of the areas that we're seeing that we're going to have to kind of put a stop on for right now. And she's done a great job in that. So I don't want to give the impression that social studies education is going to be lacking. That's certainly not the case. We have a full team right now of social studies educators throughout the district who are collaborating and working on curriculum. They'll be doing that again this summer. But in terms of the professional development piece, that just could not be funded. But we are going to continue the great work that the teachers are doing in those areas.
Thank you.
Right. So I just wanted to conclude the presentation is that I think that from the perspective of curriculum, instruction, and professional learning, we're really finding ourselves at an important crossroad. The current budget, as I said earlier, it does allow us to maintain stability. It keeps the essential systems running and ensuring that the teaching and learning occurs in our district is moving forward and providing high quality work. However, it does represent a minimal investment in advancing the work that matters most, which is enhancing, strengthening curriculum and improving instruction. So I wanted just to thank you all for your continued partnership. I know this process is not an easy one. I know a lot of tough decisions are made. We appreciate the teamwork. I've never been able to kind of work in this capacity with school committee. So it is refreshing to inform you of the work that we're doing in the Office of Teaching and Learning. We're really proud of the work. And to Mayor Laredo's point, we just wanted you to be informed of like this is kind of the hopes and dreams of our department. And we're obviously going to work hard within our budget to kind of meet those needs. I don't want anyone to think that there's going to be a dip in the high quality instruction that's already existing in Newton, but we feel like it's important for you to have that full picture, and as well as our community members, because when they see that ST Math is maybe not going to be offered next year, they're going to want to know why. And so this gives us the opportunity to kind of showcase the reasoning behind the decisions that we've made. So thank you all.
Thank you. Start with Jason and then
Ben's comment about Gigi is still sticking with me. And so I just, I guess my clarification on that discussion would be, consistent with the points you just made, and that it was really helpful to hear that. I mean, my expectation, similar to what Linda was asking, was on a relative basis in terms of with the funds we have available and the tough choices that were entailed in that. I know we're making moves to shore up other aspects of mathematics. Using ST Math as an illustrative, I hope what we're hearing is, on a relative basis, the things that we're adding are more important and we think are the best chance of keeping
Yes.
level service. And ST Math, and we've heard from teachers, it's not a scientific, but I've heard teachers, we like ST Math, and I think what we're saying is we're expecting within the limited resources we have to try to supplement in other ways. Am I hearing that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, and as we kind of talk about launching the new pathways, we're going to be getting new curriculum, and those are going to, I think, kind of bring to light more priorities of spending that we have to focus on. And so whenever we look at decisions in this capacity, it's always first impact to students. What's going to have, we kind of weigh that out. So that is correct. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Tamika or Laredo?
Thanks, Alicia. So, you've been in this position for 2 years?
Not yet, but
Not yet.
it's coming in July.
I think apologies. Speaking as a, one of the committee members who welcomed you with excitement, you have delivered consistently in a vision for this district to propel us into, this wonderful, vibrant, rich, self-regenerating, always evaluating district. And the tension that's kind of always existed is we want to get there. I love your vision. I want us to be there yesterday, but we have these limited resources. So how do we pull in the most essential, the most important pieces of this puzzle to make it so that we can get there someday on a good, predictable scale? And so as I'm listening to the mayor and he's talking about the allocation being the allocation, and I'm listening to some of the other committee members, and we're thinking, in all of the things, like which are these items, which ones are necessary? Like we need to hit them now, either because they're obligations that we currently have, or because there's a domino that would crumble or fall if they weren't implemented. And so what I would love to have as we continue our budget discussions for everybody's, every department, is to understand what are those essential pieces. Because I think we are going to have to do the thought exercise, the belt tightening thing that we don't really want to do, but it's clear that we're going to have to do it. So I, for one, I feel it would be best to prepare us with, these are the things I absolutely can't live without. And so that drops off anything that we are saying we can't fund, and we also don't want to fund at this time. And so what are those essential things?
So I think one of the great things about the curriculum review process, it helps us kind of identify those essential things. So supporting the implementation of our curriculum is, anything that does that is definitely on our list right now.
But we'll come back with a list.
Okay,
Appreciate it. Thank
thank you.
Laredo?
So I just want to point out to my colleagues, I think everyone should take a look at the budget book that we are given tonight, page 49. It says that teaching and learning program professional development slated to go up 11.9% next year, and staffing for teaching and learning scheduled to go up 9.5% next year. That's the budget book right here. So I just think that I appreciate all the asks here and the desire to do whatever we can. Those are admirable goals, but I don't want the public thinking that we're cutting the budget in this area when we're going up 11.9% and over 9%. So we need to be very clear with the public that we are substantially increasing in these two areas, far more than any rate of inflation, and far more than the increase in allocation. And that's right from the line item in the budget book.
So I'll probably ask Liam to address that, because that is not additional staffing in the teaching and learning department. Those are materials, and you see what they are. I do want to answer your question, Mayor Laredo.
Excuse me, but it says a 9.5% increase with the same level of staffing. And it has an increase of 11.9 in the professional development line item. If that's wrong, obviously we ought to correct it, but that's what we're given.
It's not additional staff, it's level staffing, increased costs in this department.
I understand it's not increased staffing. It's an increase in the budget in that particular line item.
Yes.
So it could be for a variety of reasons, but I don't want the public thinking that on these two line items, we're cutting from what we did last year.
Well, I think it's sort of the same story in the rest of the budget. The increases in the prices and inflation for all the current services mean we can't do all the things. I also just want to say, last year, we wrote and obtained $339,000 worth of grants and congressional earmarks with the help of our local delegation. In order to continue to do any of those things, we can't unless we add it. You asked about all the professional development out of the 450 number. 196,000 is all other professional development for all parts of the district, outside, inside. 254K are in-house PDs
Okay,
being
good to
paid.
know. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Flanagan.
This is Stephen Ritendi, our Director of Instructional Technology, Library, and Technology. Welcome, Stephen.
You.
Do you want me to run your PowerPoint since you always do it for everyone else?
I let people run their own. So I just need to get it up, get it going here. So
Yeah.
give me a second. Share. Switch over. Thanks. Okay, I'm actually going to read partially my comments because usually I ramble and I don't want to ramble because I want to keep everyone's time nice and succinct here. So
Just want to say, just before Stephen starts, that all the questions that were submitted, including the question from the mayor and his team, were built into the following two presentations. So that's why you're not going to hear me back and forth because it's already in there. So
if I
thank
miss
you.
anything, let me
Yep, I'll field you.
welcome. It's good to see you all tonight. My role is usually behind the scenes, and so it's good to be up here at the desk, able to talk to you and see you face to face. I have this graphic I sort of created with the help of Gemini, just to sort of emphasize how much technology is a part of every part of the district operations, from our phone systems to our lighting systems. The hallway lights, as you can see, are currently off, and I think that may be a timer that our facilities department needs to adjust based on the new lights they have installed. Financial systems on the operational side, MTSS assessments and data analysis to lesson design, planning, and delivery of student lessons on the education side. The district relies on stable, working, and reliable technology in order to do its everyday business. Technology purchases are never a one and done deal and constantly need updating and refresh. Here's the department in one slide, and in no way does it capture the complexity of the work that happens day in and day out. At the top, we have the instructional portion of the department. Our library teachers at the elementary school teach classes, seeing every student every week. At the middle and high school, they operate under more of a pull-in model where the teachers come to the library to work on class projects and to use the expertise of the resources and the expertise of our talented library staff. Also part of the instructional side of the department are our digital learning specialists. I'll talk a little bit more about their role on the next slide. And then on the tech solutions and services side, we have three parts of our department: technical support services, network and media team, and database management team. Those three parts are vital to our operations. Technical support provides the end user support. Network and media team handle everything from phones to network to wireless connectivity to internet connectivity and the AV systems throughout our schools. And the database management team supports all of our databases in the district and the integrations of those databases together, which is no easy task. On the next slide, I have the breakdown of our FTEs. And here, what I really want to point out is that in the FY26 budget, so this was for FY26, but it's set to be the same in the FY27 budget. And in this year, for FY26 is where we took a cut in our digital learning specialists, reducing from 9.4 to 6.5 this year. We also had 11.2 back in FY06 for context, right? So 20 years ago, we actually had more of that role. They were called instructional technology specialists back then. We had them prior to that, but I was looking for past budget books and I wasn't able to pull one out to figure out how far back they went. This role in the past has provided direct instruction to students through a push-in model at the teacher's request. So they go into classrooms, they teach alongside teachers, bringing in digital literacy and computer science standards from the Massachusetts framework, which we don't actually have dedicated time for in the curriculum. And later on in this year, when the Engineering and DLCS Committee presents its findings from its curriculum review, we'll talk a little bit more about that. That's happening in May. We no longer actually have the ability to do sort of a push-in model at the secondary level. So of that 6.5 digital learning specialists, 1.75 are dedicated to all 6 secondary schools. And that model just doesn't leave much staffing to go around between all those schools. And so that's primarily a remote support model right now for educators, as well as providing professional learning opportunities for staff. At the elementary level, each full-time digital learning specialist is responsible for supporting 4 schools. All the DLCS provide direct support to teachers in lesson planning and professional development. This year, the elementary DLCS are also doing a small-scale pilot at about 4 elementary schools where they work with a small group of students at a particular grade level during wind block. When some students are in intervention, they are taking a small group of students to do coding lessons and other digital literacy lessons with them. Those have been very well received by the students, and the DLS are excited. They want to be working with students as much as they possibly can. It's just challenging when there's only 4 of them to go around to all the elementary schools, essentially. What other things have we just lost? That was a question that was asked before this presentation. So as I said, at the high school level and at the middle school level, the staffing that we used to have in the buildings would actually provide direct support to students. Not being in the building right now, they aren't able to do that, right? So at the high school, at both high schools, just as an example, well, one of the high schools, that person was actually based in the library, and they would have drop-ins constantly from students looking to get support with their technology that they were using for their learning, whether it to be to help make a presentation, help to make a video project, etc. That was available for them in the building and is no longer available. In-person support for teachers at the middles and high schools, I already mentioned. Responsiveness to the needs has just been significantly cut. They're not able to provide that real-time support to teachers that need it in the moment, and they're not also able to get around to as many classrooms as they used to do. And so, I mean, the ability to directly instruct on the DLCS standards has sort of taken a hit there. This next slide sort of gives an overview of the department over time, and I'm not going to spend too much on it, but what's telling here is that we increased technology significantly in the department over time, and especially over the 10 years represented here. The pandemic years were in here. We shifted to a one-to-one model. We started one-to-one at the high school right before the pandemic, and then it sort of expanded everywhere out of necessity, and then became the norm. And yet over that time, we have actually decreased the staffing to support all that technology that we have brought into the district, which has made it challenging. Made it challenging to teachers and also made it challenging to my staff, who are pulled in many different directions. So there's the what we have lost question that was asked earlier. The next slide is just an overview of where our budget goes. That's non-staff based. And you can sort of see the breakdown of this. It was a very similar slide last year. I think some of the second and third bar may have been slightly different. We were able to spend a little more on network this year. One of the things that I like to point out on this slide is that we, relatively speaking, we spend very little on instructional software out of my department. The majority of that comes out of the Office of Teaching and Learning, which you've already heard about. So we're mostly spending for a lot of the administrative stuff on our side of the department. Was there one more question I wanted to answer? Something here? Nope. Okay. This slide is based on FY26. So I'm showing you a lot about FY26 just because it tells the role of the budget going forward. So in 23-24, we did an internal needs analysis of what we needed to be able to do in order to keep our technology at its current level. The left-hand bar of this chart represents that need for FY26. It was actually a 10-year analysis, and you can see each of those 10 years broken out. And the right-hand bar shows like where we are this year in meeting that need that we've developed. And so this is really about network and infrastructure and phones, staff and student devices, and classroom technology. It does not include software. Those are all reoccurring expenses, which we just have in the budget if we can pay for it. And so what I wanted to mention here is that in FY26, those of you who were on the committee last year and those of you who were listening may have remembered that this department took a $400,000 hit on its baseline. The city covered that $400,000 and added an additional $150,000. So that was all city funding. So when you look at this year, you can see that 600 gap from where we wanted to be, which was approximately, when we did that analysis, an additional 700 to 750 in our baseline budget in order to meet the needs. Because of that extra 150 we got from the city this year, our gap is only about 600 this year, right? So you can see it. I was actually happy to see that the numbers played out based on the analysis that we had done. Kind of confirmed that analysis still held. So where are we in, well, I guess we'll get there in a second. What have we done? I think it's important to talk about where we seek cost savings. And so I have a little bit of that here, just as an explanation of what we've been looking at. We have two pilots going on right now. One is with teacher devices and the other is with student devices. So right now our teachers are given Mac Airs. We have been experimenting with giving them a Chromebook Plus. Chromebook is not as powerful as a Mac Air. It costs about $800 versus about $1,000 to $1,100 for the Mac Air. We have them in the hand of 40 teachers right now. I actually use one predominantly. I have my Mac Air, well, the Mac Air is for presentations today, but I've been using one predominantly as well. And it's a mixed bag for our teachers, right? So there's two reasons to look at this and to look at the analysis. One is cost savings, and one is will it do the job that it needs to do? And I would say teachers right now are mostly in the negative, or let's say leaning negative. There are some teachers who are like, yep, I would use this. A lot of teachers are like, no, I wouldn't use it. So we have a little bit of work to do to see whether or not it's possible to make this work. Right now, it doesn't look likely. And it also doesn't bear out when we look at the actual costs. If we think about a school which has wireless casting technology, and that's kind of a key factor here. So whenever we build a new school, one of the things we do, because teachers like to be disconnected from the front of the room and like to be able to walk around with their laptop and their technology, is we do put wireless screencasting in place. When we factor that in for a Chromebook, you need something that's more expensive than an Apple TV, which is what we're able to do with a Mac Air. It costs about $400 per device, or a $60 app that you can stick on an Apple TV per year. So the cost over time actually kind of mitigate the cost of buying a Chromebook versus a Mac Air. With that said, we are also looking at another option right now, because last week Apple announced something called the MacBook Neo, which is a $500 to $600 Mac Air with a less powerful processor than what we currently purchase. And they're targeting it towards the education market. We have a couple of sample models coming in. We'll take a look at whether or not that will work. It may help on the teacher side because it's an OS that they're familiar with. It still has all the local capabilities of a Mac operating system. So we'll look at that option, right? So we're looking at all of these possible options as places to save money. I'm a little worried right now. We actually eke out about 7 years out of a Mac Airs in front of teachers, 6 years. 7 years, pushing it about 6 years. Typically, it's a 5-year replacement cycle for most devices in the education market for teachers. 6 years is what we can get out of a Mac Air. I'm not sure we'd be able to get that out of the Mac Air Neo or the Chromebook Plus. So there's another place where I'm not sure we actually see the cost savings.
Stephen, there was a late breaking question that came in this afternoon about what do we do with decommissioned computers?
Oh, when we decommission, so we have a surplus process that we follow, which does end up selling those devices to a surplus vendor. We do use our devices pretty much until the end of life, though. So sometimes when we take a device back from a teacher, we recycle it to someone else in the district as much as we possibly can. And so those devices end up getting used quite a bit, and the retail value is kind of low by the time we get there. The vendor also agrees to wipe the hard drive and follow all that process and give us certifications. So we don't get a ton of money back, but we do get some money back from it. We never throw them in the garbage. I would hate that from a recycling perspective. Student devices for grade 2 looks a little more promising. So here we're taking iPads in grade 2 and replacing them with a Chrome tablet. So it looks like this, very much like an iPad device. We have those in 4 classrooms. They're about $80 less when initially purchased, $100 over time. And the reason why the $100 over time is because we also pay a per year management license for the iPad so that we can manage its software. So over time, it's about $100 saved. We don't have the same overtime costs for the Chromebook. Teachers like that device. So that actually looks promising, being able to use that in grade 2 classrooms. So the plan right now is to move forward with that with any devices we end up replacing in grade 2 for next year, which potentially also includes our new buildings that are coming online. What is in the FY27 budget? So as currently written, the FY27 budget reestablishes the baseline for this department at the essentially bringing it back up 550. So that restores the 400 that was cut in FY26 and brings in the 150 that we had added into the budget. So that would be our level funding moving forward in this budget as is. That allows us to replace teacher and administrator devices that need to be replaced. We have approximately 400 of those next year. It's actually a bubble relative to other years. Newton North in particular is coming due for their replacements, and those were all done at a very similar time frame. So there's a lot of devices there that we have to replace. Looking to replace 2,000 student devices. That's 1,000 more than we normally do. So normally we're doing, well, that we have been able to do, I should say, not that we want to be able to do. We've been doing about 1,000 every year, but that has been falling behind what we need to do in our need analysis. So I'm hoping to do a little bit of catch up next year and also add in a few others there to be able to do at other levels. So right now, what we have typically been doing is purchasing about 1,000 devices for our 6th graders with the intention that they will use it all through middle school, into 9th and 10th high school, and then they have the option of either keeping it for 11th and 12th, which would be a long time, or going BYOD in grade 11 and 12. So we're not purchasing new devices at the high school for those students. They're just keeping it from 6th grade right through high school. And if they want to go BYOD in grade 11 to 12, they have that option. We need to start replacing devices at the elementary school, so that's what that additional 1,000 factors in there. Typical costs for maintenance and repairs, software licenses, etc. Limited upgrades to classroom AV equipment. I was actually hoping to do this year, but the budget freeze cut me off. So we want to do some projectors at Bigelow Middle School in particular. If you've ever been into Bigelow Middle School and into their classrooms, you may know that a lot of classrooms still have desktop projectors, which are not ideal in a teaching environment, cords coming across the floor and blocking everything when you try to teach in front of it. So we would like to get them transitioned to short throw projectors that are mounted above the board. So that starts us off on that. It's not going to get us very far, but that's about all that I can currently do. What it doesn't do is just provide us with a regular replacement cycle for aging AV equipment. We could replace the Zervis network this year. In the end, we don't have to, so it's actually okay. I'm okay with not being able to do that this coming year. We could probably get another year or two out of that network. Believe it or not, that building is now coming up to almost 10 years old. It's not there yet, but it's close. That was the second of our major elementary schools to be done. We did replace Anger's network this year. Also, additional devices. We had a lot of purchases during the pandemic. Those devices are now old. We have to start replacing them. So that's what I'm hoping to do as soon as we possibly can. Or we've got to look at what are the alternatives. No anticipated changes in staffing this year. We may see some library adjustments depending on how enrollment works and other factors that come into play. This one is, I kind of mislabeled this slide. It probably shouldn't be what is not in the FY27 budget. It's sort of like what's helping the FY27 budget, and that's our construction projects coming up this year, right? So this is actually a bright spot. The Horace Mann project will be completed in September. It will have an all-new network in that building, so that helps with our network replacements. That building has a very old network. It was the first, that network was done when it was a swing space for Anger, so that was quite a while ago, and so it needs to be upgraded. What the project will also fund is new AV equipment in the new and existing spaces that are getting substantially renovated. It is not quite there and able to fund a complete replacement of AV equipment, which I hoped it would, but we're not able to do that at this point yet. Still waiting to hear if we can find some extra cost savings to do that. And it's also not replacing student devices in that building, which we would normally do with a big building project. We didn't really replace student devices when we first opened Horace Mann as Horace Mann currently either. And so that's part of what I'm hoping to do with some of that 2,000 devices that I have listed on the budget, is to replace Horace Mann out of the IT budget. Countryside and Franklin projects, all new technology. We tell teachers, no, don't bring anything with you. They get everything new. What they have in their buildings, we have essentially let go because we know they were getting renovated and replaced. And so that equipment is in need of being refreshed, and it will with the building projects. So both of those two projects actually help for this year close that 600,000 gap. But what I want to, the emphasis that I want to make there is that we have been relying for many years on available one-time funding, which comes or doesn't come. And that's just not sustainable in a way of being able to plan for and budget for what we need to do over time. It also hurts for things like applying for E-rate funding. So E-rate funding is money from the federal government that can be used to replace network equipment. And so if we don't know we're getting one-time funding, it's hard to apply for that and anticipate it.
So Stephen, much like we just heard in the teaching and learning budget, you and the teaching and learning budget last year were subject to free cash lift outs, right? So $500,000 was yours. Gina had many different line items reached out. So now when we look at your budget book, it's going to look like a big increase, right? Like teaching and learning is going to look like a 9 or 11% increase because those monies were taken out of the operating budget last year, used in one-time free cash. And I just want to say the mayor has shored us up with that, so we are good, but it is going to look like an increase into your budget.
Yep, absolutely. You will also see different percentages because we also move things around from year to year depending on where it's needed in different line items.
Could you also
I-
address a question that came up about network outages and slowdowns? Because that's come up across our staff and here. The question is, you know, a lot of the pain point there has been when kids are taking STAR exams. Do we think there's a correlation, bad luck? Are there investments needed to prevent this in the future? I tried to slow you down when you were talking about the network, and I don't want to lose it too much. You're okay with not replacing Zervis, but can you speak to this issue?
Yeah. So STAR assessments has been a couple of issues over time and different issues at different points in time. So the very beginning of STAR assessments this year, there was actually, well, one of the testing sessions, I can't remember which one, Maria, but one of those was actually an outage from STAR. And so that was their issue, not ours. We then were eventually able to trace something on our side, which wasn't actually network capacity this year. We actually have plenty of network capacity this year. It was with our filtering program. So our filtering program is designed to examine and look at images. And that image technology was slowing that assessment down quite a bit. And even putting in an exception was having a bit of a problem. So we had to work with the company to get that to not slow down that test and to actually be better. It took us a little while to figure that out. But once we were able to resolve that, we just got a report this week so far today. Just today, today's Monday, that it seemed to be going significantly better, especially at the kindergarten assessments that were being given today. Keeping my fingers crossed on that, I think we should be in a better position. So it's a lot of variety of things. That was the STAR assessments. At times we have network outages. Their cause is so varied that I don't think I can even bring it up here, but there hasn't been any one thing that's been an issue. It's been a variety of different
Like
things.
one time a squirrel chewed through some wires, right? That was a really great one.
I think that was last year. That was some of the fiber that goes from building to building, and that affected both the city and the school side.
I want to be clear on something. There's probably something for Mr. Hurley. Mr. Hurley, maybe you could come up for a second. In the budget book that you've given us, you have an adjusted budget for 2026, correct? And that adjusted budget includes the base of 292 plus the additional monies that were given as one-time free cash. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so when we look, for example, at the teaching and learning budget we just looked at, it's an 11.9 and 9 point whatever % increase over the adjusted budget, which is why the money for in IT increases relatively low, because we've already baked in that $400,000 that came from free cash last year. That's baked into the budget. I want to be clear about that.
In the FY26 adjusted.
In the FY26 adjusted, we did that,
Adjusted,
yeah.
yeah.
All right, so just so we're very clear, so I have a couple of questions that I just want to understand about IT planning. So when you say, how many devices if do we have in the system at any given time between students and
So
staff?
kindergarten is 1 to 2. So the ratio is 1 to 2 to students, and then everywhere else it's 1 to 1 for students. So that's approximately 10,000 devices for students in students' hands. Every staff member, every teacher and Unit B and administrator has a device. And most office staff, just about everyone, most staff except for some aides don't have devices. But the majority of our staff, so what's our nurses, not nurses do, I wish I could give you that.
Just
exact number, but
ballpark
let me
it
give
for
you-
me. I'm
I'd
just trying to
probably say it's somewhere
understand.
between 14,000 to 15,000 devices.
Okay, and so when you talk about replacing approximately 2,000 a year, that's 2,000 of the 14,000 devices that are out there. Really an educational question. We've heard a lot about kids being on devices and some negative things about that. Could you just share with us a little bit what devices are being used in kindergarten, first grade, second grade? Are they, I presume they're very different than the Chromebook that my kid would have gotten in ninth grade.
Right. So in kindergarten, in the lower grades, in grade 2, it will be this device, which is very similar to an iPad. So right now in K1 and 2, they're using iPads. for their devices. And then starting in grade 3 is when they transition to the Chromebook.
And I presume the cost of an iPad is less money than a Chromebook?
No, it's actually more.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what percentage of our kids end up using their own devices, particularly as they get into the middle school and high school?
Yeah, so middle school, they're not allowed to use their own device. At high school, they're supposed to not start until grade 11. It's hard to tell because we ask them to give our device back and they don't all do that when they bring their own device in. So I don't have a good and accurate picture of that. I would say when we had about 20 to 25% of the students turn in their Chromebook at 11th grade. The first year we offered BYOD.
Otherwise, it's sitting at home till graduation, and then they figure out there's time to return it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Now that device is also many years old, and I'm not even entirely sure I would be giving it out to anyone else. It's at that point going to be about 7 years old, if not more.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just putting out there is, there's obviously a lot of kids out there who do have their own devices for a whole variety of reasons. I wonder if as part of our strategy, we ought to encourage that use earlier, given the reality that these kids have it, and then we free up some money for Chromebooks for other kids.
There are some challenges around that. We targeted 10th grade as the year to end to say like in 11th grade, now you can do BYOD mostly because of MCAS. Giving MCAS on a personal device poses new challenges that would require, honestly, more staff to support students in making sure that their device is ready for MCAS, because now you've got to install software on your own. It's got to be ready for it, and we got to make sure that it's up there. So there's been challenges at why we picked grade 10 to 11 for that transition. Are there districts that do it? Yes. Is it a headache? Yes. But yes, it's an option for us to consider.
Okay. All right. I'm all set. Thank you very much.
The next slide I just wanted to point out, and this is those additional requests that are not funded. So one of those was the an extra $100,000 toward that remaining $600,000 gap. I knew asking for all of that at once in any one given year would not be realistic. So that's where that hopefully trying to get that incremental increase. We have also asked for $25,000 to support library collection development throughout the schools. One thing to note on this is that currently libraries at all schools are supported by a combination of the school budget and PTO spending. And so that makes for a lot of individual decisions in terms of what library gets what type of funding and what level of funding, because the principal has a discretion to decide how much they're going to spend, and then the PTOs have discretions. So at some schools, the PTO does the entire library budget, and it's actually more than those that do both school-based budget and PTO budget, because the PTO is able to take care of that. That does not happen across the board. We would like to be able to support buying library books more purposefully, more centrally, more equitably, in order to be able to both support the needs of our students and also the needs of curriculum rollouts, to be honest with you. We want that collection to be able to support our curriculum that's coming from the Office of Teaching and Learning, and this would be one way to do it. The $87,000, this one is one that we've had on the radar screen for a while. Right now, we have the free version of Google Workspace for Education. There is a paid edition out there. It's about $8 per person, ish, somewhere in that range. It's a lot of money to do it, but there are a couple of benefits that we would gain from that we are not currently seeing. One of those is total storage. So right now, as a district, no matter what district you are on the free plan, no matter how big you are, how small you are, you have 100 terabytes of data. We have about 12% of that data left. We added about 6% just in this year alone. So it's obviously not sustainable. We already capped students in terms of how much storage they have. Our next step will be capping staff in their storage, which is going to be painful for many staff. With the paid version, we actually get 20 gigabyte per user account that we buy, which would essentially more than double our storage capacity that we currently have, and would not put that pain point in terms of having to make choices about what we store and what we don't store in our curriculum areas, on Google in particular. The other things it gives us is there's a lot more tools that Google has built in for educators to make use of in the classroom for lesson planning, lesson design. Just as an example, Google Classroom, you can share lesson templates between teachers when you have the paid version. Right now, we can't do that. So you can't actually do some collaborative work within Google Classroom to share those lessons and those lesson plans easily. The other piece that it does for us is give us access to additional cybersecurity tools, which we don't have access to. As an example of that, This weekend, we had an email go out from a student account that was hacked that we would have loved to have been able to easily pull back. With the paid version, we can easily pull back that email from all the accounts. We can do that now, but it's a complicated process to get there. It takes time, and it's more likely that email is going to be accessed by someone else. So that email was used to send an email out to other students in the district and other staff. And we would like to be able to stop that beforehand. So the paid version would allow us some of those cybersecurity solutions that we currently don't have access to. Staffing wise, these are requests that I've had for a while, especially the coordinator of digital learning and instructional technology. We used to have a 1.0 in that position before I became tech director. Then it was reduced to a 0.5 assistant coordinator, and then that position was eliminated. So we don't have that role. And I would also love to see the restoration of the digital learning specialists that we have cut over time. That's the sum of it. So at that point, I'd be happy to take questions. We do a lot with our budget. The question that I think we have before us as educators, before you as school committee, is what do we want technology to look like in the district? And if we're not able to fund it, what does that mean? And where do we make those sacrifices? I think we are pretty lean already as a department and have a lot of needs. So taking additional cuts, well, even right now, if we continue on the path we'll have to make changes. And so additional cuts on top of that would mean even more drastic changes. Questions?
We have Jason, Victor, Linda, Tamika. Jason.
Thanks very much for walking through. The mayor's question overlaps a lot with mine, so I'll try to be brief. You talked about a needs analysis, and that's around replacing devices.
Devices, classroom AV equipment, and network. So all three of those are incorporated.
My question is around understanding that as sort of a snapshot versus a steady state. And then one of my questions offline, I think we were saying that across those devices and network equipment, et cetera, there's a range of life, 6 to 10 years or something like that. Is that right?
Correct.
So how did that analysis use that figure? Is this a run rate figure? And what is, because on slide 10, we saw a 1.5 million with a gap of 600K to 912.
Yeah.
Am I understanding the 1.5 million is the steady state rate that we need to run at just to keep? It's basically like if I take a device and divide it by its useful life.
Yep.
6 years or 8 years or 10 years.
With trying to spread those out over time as well.
So that would be just staying still with
Correct.
all of the devices.
Correct.
Is the 1.5 million.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the actual FY26, the 912,
Yep.
was after there was a reduction in free cash. Is that correct or no?
That was included. That's including what we had from the mayor, from the
free
city.
cash.
Yes. So that is our total spending, our
Of
budget.
the
and that
900, there was
additional.
a free cash component and a OpEx component.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we are saying in the FY27, I apologize for being this basic, but it's in a few different places in the budget, so it's been hard for me to track. We're reestablishing the baseline budget as 550. Please help me with that. Which 550 is that?
Yeah. So the 400 that was cut from last year
Yep.
is being restored back into the budget as currently written. And the 150 that was given by the mayor gave the mayor last year. So the city gave 550,000, which was 400 taken out of the budget, and then additional 150 was given. So that's the total 550. Does that make sense?
But I'm seeing 912, so that's where I'm getting confused.
The 912 is also what we already had in the budget, right? So we didn't cut all of the budget for technology for devices and for AV equipment and network equipment. So the 550 wasn't additional, but it was 400 cut from what we could, mostly on student devices. And then an additional 150 was on top of that, but we still had money in the budget for network and other items.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, basically what you're saying though is with the 550 added back, we are back in that 900 range.
Correct.
So we still have,
Correct.
on a run rate basis, we're saying roughly a 600K gap to the replacement run rate.
Yes.
And you're saying in this one particular year, that gap is much more modest because we have these buildings.
The building projects are helping us because they're going to replace a lot of technology that we would otherwise need to replace. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Victor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stephen, good to see you again. Thank you very much for doing this. A couple different questions. So I'm thinking about this. You actually answered one of my key questions, which was in 11th grade, MCAS facilitation, familiar device. As I'm thinking about it from a policy standpoint, potential device bans, any concerns about mirroring of devices, kids getting creative, I guess, in that, or is that a relatively low issue so far?
Yes, and I think our high schools are already dealing with that, and they're at grade 11 and 12. So if a student's bringing their own device, we would not be able to, for example, which has been helpful at the middle school, with our web filter, a teacher can actually pull up a screen of all the students in their class while they're in the classroom and see what they're doing. That's hard to do at the high school because you have a mix of students who bring their own device, and we can't put that software on a personal device. So that is one of the challenges that we do have. I'm not as worried about them like taking over a screen that's on the we have adventurous students that will try that regardless. We try to control for that, but I'll hire them in the future, I guess. Right. So like those challenges always exist, and we do everything we can to plug that. But I think the biggest challenge is controlling that device, making sure that it does have well filtering software on it, which we would not be able to do. We'd have to look at more stringent network level filtering. Right now, the device level filtering is what we tend to do
From the network side. Correct. Yeah, server side. Okay, and then in terms, if a student for whatever reason is unable to bring a capable enough device, do we provide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. On a different set of topics, I'm curious about this Google Workplace for Education, the Plus Edition part. What's consuming the most storage space? Is it emails? Is it curriculum resources? What's driving that?
It's curricular resources to a large extent. Yeah, it's mostly curricular resources. We have worked to get people shared Google Drives so that they don't have to have duplicates of it on their own drive, but they also then like to modify and personalize, and so then that ends up creating one on their own drive. Our teachers like to hold on to student artwork, and so we've got to balance that and figure out how do we get those exemplars that they want to hang on to while also taking up storage space. So it's a wide variety of things, video, audio files across the board. We also have a lot of staff.
I'm sure with your expertise, you've thought about it already. I guess to some extent, to the extent that there is sort of digital archival solutions that may be more affordable, that's something I would just throw out there as a
absolutely no. It's something we'll have to look at.
Yeah, it's always a challenge in the corporate world as well too that my private peers like.
And it adds to the management side of things as well. Whereas Google is significantly easier to manage, but now we have a server. Now we've got to manage that piece and
that I appreciate
and maintain that server over time too. So.
But I think that the other element of it is just that down the road, I can't even think about, I was one of those early adopters of Google back in the old days. And it's insane what my Google One account looks like now because we just keep laddering up. Although even for my own family, I'm trying to enforce a bit of discipline in terms of how much we keep historically. But I guess, it's 87 now. Eventually that storage, we're going to have to decide at some point what we decide to cut off.
And I would say, like, we put out a call when we first noticed we were getting close to that limit. And we had threatened to put limits on teachers. And that summer we had a good number of teachers that went through and cleared out their drive. We are back up again, right? Like, so it doesn't take long for it to creep up. In fact, it only took 2 years from when we put out that call and we got down to about 20% available, and now we're down to 12%. So it's a constant effort and a constant keep up. Unfortunately, that was a lot of teachers doing some things over the summer that they don't have time to do during the year either. And we've got to figure out how to help them plan that out.
The last question says, it's not even on here, but I'm curious in terms of, to the extent that we're doing anything that's AI related and token costs and things of that nature, is how, if at all, is that contemplated in what a budget could look like in the future? Or is that just not even within scope at the moment?
Yeah, so the main AI initiative we have right now is with a program called Brisk, and that's currently funded. It was originally funded under a pilot where the company gave us a fairly good discount. I don't even think they did give it for free for the first half of the year. I think they may have even given it to us for free for the first half of the year. Office of Teaching and Learning was able to pick up for the last few months of the year following that. But right now we've applied for grants for it. I don't know if we've heard anything back yet. So we'll see if that happens. Otherwise, teachers have access to the free version, which is covered under Google Workspace for Education core services of Gemini and Notebook LM. We do not have it open to students right now. We are in conversations in the district around that. We belong right now, we are participating in what's called the PEAK cohort, which is a program out of MassQ. to look at and examine AI in the district. And so there's a number of other districts that are participating in that. And we have a group of educators and administrators who are taking a look at it seriously to figure out where we're heading with AI in the district in the future and how do we help both staff and students navigate it. I think we would be doing a disservice to our students not giving them the tools they need to use AI effectively, especially since we all know that there are a lot of cautions that they need to take into place when using AI. And we need to make sure that they're well educated for that before they leave us.
The staff version is sandboxed, or is it a open?
Say it again.
The staff AI version is sandboxed, or is it a proprietary?
No,
environment, or
it's
is it-
within Google for Education, so it is
Oh,
it is
okay, got it.
Google's,
I see.
but they have it under the same data privacy agreements that we have the rest of the Google for Education
Understood.
environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rendetti. Appreciate you.
Linda?
Thank you, Stephen. That was very, very helpful. Really appreciate it. My question actually is for Dr. Nolan, which is, my understanding is we went to the one-to-one at the elementary school level during COVID, and it was a necessity. I'm curious how our educators feel. Like, is it driving better student outcomes, having the one-to-one ratio of device to student at the elementary school level? Or now that we are past COVID, is there an opportunity to pull back on those ratios?
So I think it all depends on what sort of curriculum materials we actually purchase in the end. So if we purchase solely digital scenarios, that's one cost. If we purchase text and digital, that's another. I mean, we are definitely in the process through Stephen's work to do his curriculum audit for digital and media literacy of hearing from a certain subset of teachers. Stephen and I contracted with Boston College when I first came here to actually map the amount of usage of the technology. And I know we hear a lot about it. I have to say that when I'm in classes, I see a lot less than I hear about from parents. I think the issue for us is that the technology's there, teachers use it because they're depending on it now for things like word processing and resource acquisition. But what happens is during free time, students get some choice to work on that, and parents would prefer that that not be the case. So we have been working to sort of shore up what are the products, the expectations. Stephen and I are talking about, like, we'll put some time guidance out to teachers, how much by grade level might be appropriate given the curriculum tools. But right now we have pretty uneven experiences across the district. It's certainly up for discussion. We can poll our parents. Depending on how we ask about it, we can ask our teachers. We can't ask it relative to their working conditions, but we can ask it relative to their instructional needs.
I would say that this year we have a technology advisory committee that I was able to put together finally, that includes mostly educators who are out in the schools. And when I talk about budget and I talk about having to potentially make choices, the elementary teachers get into panic mode because of where their curriculum materials lie, how they use it to organize their classrooms. They worry about the formative assessments and how they'll administer formative assessments that we use to get all that MTSS data that we love, because that all requires connection to a digital device or hand input at some point in time, which is just inefficient and more time consuming for educators outside of the classroom. So it is everywhere, and it is being used across the board in many places. I'd actually say that I think there is more good uses than bad uses of it in the district overall. I think we hear those stories about students that are using it in ways that we would probably not wanting them to use it. But I think for the most part, when I go into classrooms, I'm seeing more positive uses than negative uses. And I think teachers are very thoughtful and purposeful about how they think about using technology in the classroom.
Yeah, I didn't mean to open up a big can because, of course, this is a big topic. I really was just purely focused on the ratios and kind of the cost with the one-to-one, and really from the teaching to the, could we go to a 1-to-2, back to a 1-to-2, or whatever we were at pre-COVID, and would that impact our teaching at all?
Yeah, I think teachers would probably say yes, but I think we have to look at that depending on where that comes out in the budget.
Thank you.
Mika, then Ben. So Linda's questions actually they're the crux of where I was going to go. You know, I think pandemic, we moved to a rapidly accelerated one-to-one model, K through 12. And it might be time for us to decouple this district's approach to technology and use of devices from the budget process. It comes up every year during the budget cycle, what we can afford in terms of device replacement, in terms of upgrades to systems. And I think in order for us to be strategic and to plan with the available resources that we have to our disposal, we really need to just take a look at a comprehensive idea. And you addressed it right at the end of your presentation. You said, what do we want this district to look like in terms of our technology? And I think if we haven't solved that essential question, we're always going to be chasing or somehow falling flat in our ability to meet this kind of nebulous concept of what we want for our district for technology. And if we pick up on what Linda was talking about, prior to COVID, especially in those younger grades, we had carts, right? They had carts of iPads that would be available to a particular class on a particular day for use.
There was a 5-pack in every classroom at the elementary school, either a Mac Air or a iPad. And then they also had shared carts that they could supplement to have a full class set. Yep.
That's the way. So I don't know if I relish the idea of going back to that time, and I certainly don't think our teachers do either. However, can we afford to not think of some of those scaled back modes? And I think that's the point that Linda was trying to hit. I know that our kindergartners are, what is it, to a 2-to-1 device, but what, I don't know, is that the number? And do we need to think about it separate from budget? Because during this compressed, consolidated budget process, we really can't do those conversations justice.
Yeah, and we are, and honestly, that's one of the reasons why I formed the Technology Advisory Committee this year. And I think because, just to put it out there, because we have the building projects coming on, we're fine for next year. Like I'm not worried about next year, which means we have a little bit more time to figure that out and to look at that. And one of the tasks I've told the Technology Advisory Committee that we have is, if this is our budget, what does that mean things need to look like, and where do we adjust things? And I'm looking for them for their input. They're not going to be helpful with that as much as I would like them to be, because they don't want to give it up. But we may not have that. We may not have that option.
So to get a specific question in there, your projected $550,000 that the budget would support includes 200 device replacements.
2,000.
Or 2,000 device replacements.
That's the hope. We'll see how pricing comes out. You know what I should say, and thank you for reminding me about that. One of the reasons why I'm also able to do that is I've got some flexibility because Apple is offering us 0% financing on iPads, and for 400 iPads, 0% financing. So we have flexibility to either pay that all off at once, which I would ideally like to do, or we could decide that we want to spend more on some devices and spend only 40,000 of the, I think it's 120,000 in total. So we have a little more flexibility built into that. They're actually not offering that going forward, I don't think, but we were able to get that locked in for now for this one-time purchase of 400 devices of iPads. The rest are Chromebooks or Chromebook Pluses.
So those are, okay, so of the 2,000, 1,000 are
6th grade.
Elementary.
1,000 would be 6th grade.
6th grade, so
And then the rest of them will be trying to replace elementary devices, which we have not been able to replace.
idea of the number of the more expensive devices, the iPads included in that figure.
They're not in that figure. So that figure, so the 400 is iPads, and then another 1,600 or so will be Chromebooks and or Chromebook Pluses, Chromebook tablets. Of essentially of what is like 6,000 devices at the elementary school approximately. So 6,000 to 7,000.
Thank you. Linda took my question almost verbatim. I'll just echo that I hear the same thing Dr. Nolan hears from parents, and I think we should continue to work on excising the bad uses. I'm glad that they are fewer than the good uses, but let's try to keep
getting them down to 0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good. I'll get the slide deck queued up for Liam.
Back by popular demand, Liam Hurley.
Okay. Get this close to me. Good evening, everyone. Better. Thank you, Lisa. I'm here to talk tonight about the business finance and planning team, as well as a few of the departments kind of that fall into the non-instructional role here. I put this little three-legged stool in terms of our foundational support on what I think about for our office, fiscal management, services for school staff and students, and then certainly planning. So I won't read all the slides here, but certainly a number of things that we're doing. Obviously, budget, we're here tonight to talk about budget. No problem. Our fiscal projections that we do, audit, state reporting, payroll, accounts payable, purchasing, and so on. So you can see all these pieces that we've got here. All of them critical, all of them absolutely essential to the running of a school district. This is just kind of a little bit of an org chart in a way, as showing our current FTE as well. This is what's here in the building. So payroll with 3 people, planning and project management, 1 person there, finance throughout. We've also got the data and research team, two people over there, and then the HR department with a little more than eight and a half FTE over there in their department. I did want to go back over time and just take a look at and this was kind of interesting for me, particularly back since 2002, what has transpired, and we've had a lot of movement here. So back in 2002, these same kind of departments, there was not really a data department way back then, but there was about 33 people. That's fluctuated over time. It was down to 30 people in the FY09, FY15, FY19, 29, and we're up to 33.7. So have gone up a little bit since in recent years. I want to talk about a few of these positions here. So we've actually added a director of DEI and HR department, data analytics person, in the data department as well, which has been really critical for us. We've hired a business operations analyst person as well. Really a big goal for her was to really increase our fees, and I want to show you the slide on our fees and what we've done with that revenue. And then certainly a director of planning and project management. So these are the 4 positions, and HR has had a 0.7 as well, data analyst that's been added recently as well, really helping with kind of the analysis on their side and educator pipeline work. So, over a 24-year period, same numbers that was back in 2002, we've had up a couple of FTE from then, running an organization, more than $300 million organization, to me is pretty impressive in terms of our staffing. All right. Coming in slow. In terms of our major focus areas, kind of think about operational infrastructure, our financial management, long-range planning that I've already talked about, and then really tools to operationalize the district vision and goals. One of the pieces that I mentioned that is also really under the non-instructional area is really data and research. That's headed by Dr. Katie Hogue. I'm not going to read all these bullets again, but you can imagine all the pieces that she's involved with, but really managing the data to inform all the instruction. The enrollment analysis report that she does. There's a lot of support that she provides to schools as well, and certainly trainings for a lot of our staff on a lot of the reports that are required.
I think it's important to note, post No Child Left Behind and ESSER, meaning the Student Opportunities Act era, all of these accountability pieces that came into play since NCLB, just incredible amount of reporting compared to a decade ago that we are now responsible for. So for example, we used to do our civil rights data collection for the federal government every 5 years. Now we're doing it every other year. And so there's just a lot more accelerated expectations. There's a like 17-page superintendent's checklist of data items that we have to provide for DESE. So just, that's a cranking office in addition to our own hopes and dreams here in terms of student achievement data.
This is just a slide I put on into benefits here, just following HR. The benefits category actually falls under the HR department. They're obviously not the reason for why we'd have these benefits here, but that's where we categorize them. And we'll talk about a few of these big pieces as we go along here. Certainly one of the big driving factors for us this year is health insurance. So that's going from an adjusted budget of $43.1 million up to $47.4. That's really due to that approximately 9% rate increase that we've got. That's coming off of last year, which was an 11.2%. So we're looking at a little more than 20% over the last 2 years combined. In addition to that, some additional, folks taking our plans, taking family plans. So that's almost, all in just under 10% increase for that. That's really the big bucket really of our benefits. We certainly do pay Medicare payroll tax. One of the pieces that I think has been a good news story, and this has actually been some nice collaboration with the city and Maureen Lemieux, is what's called the Medicare Part B reimbursement. This is actually a payment that the city used to make, and we would also contribute to that to employees. There was a voluntary payment to basically be part of the Medicare Part B supplement. And we've basically started to phase that out. So this was at one point more than, believe almost $1.5 million in our budget. And we're bringing this down lower and lower. So this has been a very helpful tool for us. At one point, I think, as you folks know, we had OPEB actually in our budget. The city took that out. It's really budget neutral for us, other than the fact that the OPEB was actually increasing at a pretty high rate. But that was actually brought into the city budget. Sorry, this is not moving quickly for me through. Moving to just some of the building progress that we've made here in the city, updating our schools. This has been an absolutely amazing thing from my perspective to watch. I actually joined the district in 2016, so I've been here 10 years. It was opening up Ainger right at that time. And so really amazing project. Progress. I kind of say this, I'm not aware of another school district in Massachusetts that has had this progress or this number of buildings, potentially some of the larger cities, potentially, but this has been a lot of progress. And I also know we've got a long way to go. So there's a lot of buildings still that we need to hit. So Ainger, Zervis, Cabot, we had an Oak Hill addition, NECP moved in, Lincoln Elliott, and then moving on to Horace Mann. Will be coming up this summer, moving into their building. Then Countryside and Franklin really back to back, about a month and a half apart. Keep in mind that both those buildings, they're really adjacent to the site they're working in. So we're really actually going to take the full following summer until those projects are 100% complete. So they then actually have to demo the building, get those fields ready. So they'll move into the new building, but there's actually work after that. And then certainly with the mayor's intention, looking at Ward, hopefully that's in the early 2030s and looking at that and potentially Underwood after that, or whatever projects we look at. So that's going to be a TBD. I did list a few of the reports that we obviously put out here. There was a question. We obviously do our annual report. We've had McKibben, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jerome McKibben, has done a report since he did one in 2019, and then we did a follow-up one in 2024. So really, it's a question. It's about $35,000. A question to the school committee if you'd like to do that again. At the time there was some thought maybe every 4 or 5 years to do that, but if the frequency is, if it's helpful, it does look at demographics, looks at aging, things like that. I'm obviously really, partial to Dr. Katie Hoag's enrollment report and her analysis, but it is nice to get a counterbalance and taking a look at what that would be. I think you're aware that we've done as well the Perkins Eastman and elementary schools, as well as the RDO reports. So done a lot of work, and really a lot of kudos to a lot of people at the city side, on the school side, Josh Morris and his team, Stephanie Gilman and David Stickney on our side here. There's been a lot of work, a lot of planning, and there's still a lot more coming up here as well. We've got to have a busy summer. And just looking at that building progress, though, it will relate a little bit as we think about our buildings in terms of electricity, in terms of footprint. Horace Mann would be 20,000 square feet more, fully air conditioned. Great thing for the building. Both Countryside and Franklin, same thing. Larger buildings, state of the art. fully air-conditioned buildings, 20 to 25,000 square feet larger than the building they're replacing. So it's something that I don't want to complain about. It's really fantastic asset for the city, but we obviously want to maintain those assets, and that does cost money for us. Just a quick picture there. Just moving around a little bit. I'm sorry if this feels a little bit choppy. Just some of the fees. You folks have been aware of the fees, and you have been participated in some of the fee increases. Just over time, we have been in a pretty aggressive campaign. I think Dr. Nolan has mentioned that we kind of were charged several years ago with trying to find revenue or efficiencies wherever we can. So we have been steadily increasing the fees, some areas larger than others. And what I will say is that really one of the things that we impress upon, the staff is to make sure that they know the families that really financial assistance is. We do not want it to be a barrier. There are some school districts that ask for tax forms, they ask for payrolls. We don't ask for that. We basically trust people, put their information in. We ask for family size and income. Typically not looking for verification on that. If something's unusual, we might ask a little further, but really want to make sure that families feel that they're supported and can get that. 99% of all families that ask for basically some type of waiver will sometimes have a 50% percentage as well. We'll try to offer that to families. So these are the fees that have been increasing over time. And the results in terms of that revenue, again, I'd say this is something I'm proud of, and this isn't just the business finance team. This is actually a collaborative effort throughout the school district, from athletic department to out in the schools, collecting these fees from families, making sure that our rosters are filled out. So this is showing a revenue of about 3.1. Not that long ago, back in 2019, I wanted to do that before the pandemic. Certainly the pandemic had a big impact on our fees. That was that really we had to refund people, and then everything changed there. And you can see a steady increase on a lot of these. One of the ones that did not actually come back has been the early morning program. It's still a successful program. That at the time, I think COVID hit, and whether or not families are choosing, maybe some families are parent could stay at home potentially. It's still a popular program for us. It doesn't hurt us that we're not collecting this fee. We basically are more than offsetting, more than covering our costs there. But we are at one point where we're collecting a large revenue back in 2019. So it's one of the programs that has not bounced back, I think, after the pandemic for a variety of reasons. Just going to go through a few of these ones. It's not super exciting, but they certainly are, drivers to our budget, and they're significant. They're significant drivers to our budget. Obviously, salaries and benefits are about 88% of our entire piece here. But just want to talk about a few of these ones. The big three this year really for us are going to be utilities, our out-of-district tuition, and our contracted services. So those are the big three really that are kind of inflationary and really hitting us at a tough time right now. These are the costs in terms of what we're looking at from an FY26 adjusted budget of about almost $36 million total, going up to about $39.5 million, so almost 9.8%. Again, the three big that I'm talking about there, utilities. All of these are just in the $900,000 range. Utilities at $961,000. A lot of that due to, I'll get into the various pieces there. Contracted services, $900,000, and the tuition about a little $931,000 as well. Utilities budget, some details here in terms of $7.2 million. We are trying to look for some offsets here. We thank you for approving the Suzuki rental. There was something one of the members asked a little bit about. It was just a way to reduce that line item. If it's something that we don't want to do, we don't need to do it. From my perspective, it offset the gas and the electric. But at the same time, I think it would then just be a trade-off. How do we find $100,000 someplace else or put it someplace else? One of the big drivers certainly is going to be electricity. That's becoming the big piece to our budget, and I think that's going to continue to grow as natural gas. So again, the city is committed to basically getting off of any fossil fuels. So we're going to really basically be looking at electricity and electricity rates. We've seen an increase in our electricity in terms of both our delivery and our supply going up. That's certainly changed even in the last couple of weeks that people know what's going on in the world right now. These are going to be interesting to see. So That's a big driver for us. And then as well as what I talked about, some of these new building deliveries as well. For us, we have really two of the buildings are only going to be half the year. So the following year in FY28, we're going to get a chance to see what these costs and these run rates are going to look like for the second half of the year in FY27. But in FY28, we certainly need to bake in the full cost of those buildings and increased usage, increased size of those buildings as well. And certainly we're committed, and we have been on, I think maybe at this point we might be up to phase 4 in kind of solar panels. You've seen the solar panels we've got out here in the building, Wheeler Road. We have solar panels on many of our roofs. We've recently done an LED conversion here at the Ed Center. That's actually thanks to the city. They've got a fund that they can do kind of some smaller projects like that. So there's a lot of things that we're doing in terms of trying to keep sustainability kind of in mind, or at least basically try and contain costs if we can. Some questions there I think I saw just came up, but I can keep going. So whatever you'd like. Keep going.
Is that okay?
Sure. This is just a little graph here that we've tracked for a while. It just gives some history about kind of the electricity costs kind of going up over time. We've got some kind of some pieces to this. So certainly these rates continue to climb. We were in the $4.5 million range, went down a little bit for a while. We've had different things. You can see obviously when COVID hit, it went down a little bit. It came back up. So there's been a number of different things that have happened over time with us. Obviously, the major theme is really increases here, but it's something for us to be noticing. But looking at these 15 to 20% delivery and supply rate increases, that's certainly hurting us in terms of our costs, and then certainly the addition to buildings. So maintenance, I think many of you, and I may make the mistake of just talking about maintenance as what's known as either charter maintenance, or the line item actually is called public building maintenance in the budget book. Maintenance actually, when we look at the summary, actually includes a lot of different categories. There's actually a number of maintenance items that are actually not just facility maintenance. There's IT maintenance, equipment and software. There is building maintenance, there's supplies, cleaning supplies, vehicle maintenance. So it's a broad bucket. The charter maintenance or facility maintenance is a big piece of that, but it's not all of it. So I just wanted you to be aware, of the that there is more than just than the public building maintenance. So that is at $3.4 million for next year. We increased that just a little bit by 2%, $66,000. Ideally, this would be a budget. This has been an area that I've talked about for a long time of ideally increasing this at a higher rate. It's basically been squeezed out, obviously, due to other pieces, but we continue to face, additional repairs and maintenance. We do face unanticipated equipment failures and kind of reactive maintenance as much as we have preventative maintenance. The city and the schools have contracts in place with many, many vendors. We outsource a lot of those expenses, but the city also has employees. We have 2 employees, 2 shop people, but the city also has a plumber, has people on board that will actually come and do work for us that does save us money as well. If it's a bigger item, many of our HVAC items are actually are contracted out. Certainly outside of the maintenance piece is obviously there's been the CIP project that I think you folks saw. That's capital improvement plan. That's really not the maintenance, but those are typically bigger items that are funded outside of the school department's budget. That's a twice a year process that the city goes through. Given the significance of the building projects, that's been difficult to get kind of what I'm going to call smaller to mid-sized projects funded into that piece, just because of the size and scope of what we're doing. There's a number of things ideally in an ideal world with one or no objects, certainly roofs, HVAC units, many, many items that we'd love to do. And again, the city has actually put aside one-time funding for a number of those projects that we need to do. So, that continues, but there's a lot of from elevator systems to roofs that I know you folks hear about potentially as well that we'd love to either replace or, repair or replace if we can. Contracted services. Contracted services also covers a broad range of services, including student services. Dr. No Miller mentioned a lot of the pieces that she does in her contracted services line. We've got our outside substitute vendor. Precision is in that line as well. We've got training expenses, any auditors, tutoring services, legal services, professional development, anything basically. So it's any contract that we're doing, not buying a good or good. This is actually some type of service that we're procuring. That's in this bucket of $3.8 million. This is going up about a little more than $900,000. The main piece is really the essentially the $1 million increase here for our outside substitute vendor, Precision. That has been something we brought in a couple of years ago, and it has really subsequently grown for us in terms of looking at our substitute costs. Thinking about substitute costs, we've got a few different buckets that just to kind of make you aware of. So we've got basically we have in-house daily subs, and that we fill into our buildings that are actually NPS employees, and they can cover sometimes some short-term absences up to 20 days, and they're paid at a daily rate. After a 20-day period, they're actually considered what's called a long-term sub, and they're paid at a little higher rate. It's $190 a day. That's from 20 to about 89 days. And then after that 90th day, there would be called a long-term teacher sub, and they actually would be put on, they'd be benefit eligible at that point, and would be put on either the bachelor or master step 1 schedule. So in addition to that, which is an NPS employee, we've got the Precision substitutes, which is now growing up to about $2 million. In addition to that, we have our our ISS, which stands for Instructional Support Staff. This is budgeted at about $1.2 million. We have had some savings in this budget from time to time. Our principals, I think, are tending to enjoy the ease of having Precision come in. We're actually trying to make sure that there's a process in place and making sure that they stick with the ratios that we've got for them. So we have a number of ratios we've got for the size of the building, what the ISS is meant to be for, how many each school can have, and the Precision is coming in and doing kind of something similar. We typically assign our ISS staff to a building, typically 3 days a week. And they're going in, maybe a Monday, Tuesday, Friday, something like that. They're going to our buildings. Many of our elementary schools have 2 to 4 of them. They're going in, and then that's being augmented as well by Precision. So those are the major buckets, but all in, our substitutes are upwards of $5 million in addition. So in the Student Services Department, they've got a couple of contracts with a company called Maxim that provides basically some BT services as well. And they have another company that provides kind of some medical services, medical backup for some substitutes if they're needed as well. So that's certainly a piece for us. Certainly absences, and covering those absences are critical. There's a number of safety issues we need, but this is an area, particularly Precision, that has been growing and growing for us. And it's been areas that I've been talking about, I think, in the fiscal ops for some time in terms of a growth area for us in terms of our budget. Gross out of district tuition, in terms of a single line item outside of salaries and benefits, this is actually the largest line item, so at $18.3 million gross. This budget can appear in our budget as a net number, and I think what Jason and Ben, thank you, have done a really nice job, I think, kind of highlighting kind of the true cost to NPS and talking about that gross number. So I wanted to just put that gross number out. We do end up being what we call internally offsets, but really it's really additional revenue that we get from the state for what's called circuit breaker funding. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that, but it's basically from the previous year expenses that we submit in July that we get funded for in the following year. So it's trailing by a year. The state has trying to reimburse basically instructional expenses, and those can be expenses within Newton Public Schools, or tuition expenses are also instructional expenses. So those tuition expenses are there. They have to pass a threshold. That threshold is approximately $54,000. Once they get beyond that point, the state's formula says that they would kick in 75% of those instructional. They've now added, as part of the Student Opportunity Act, the transportation, which I've talked about. It's only been funded around 61%, but last year they actually funded it at 75%, and are projecting the same thing for this year as well as next year. But That's a small risk that we potentially could take in making that happen. So back to the tuitions, this is an area that I think we spoke a little bit about last time. This is an area of risk for us. At $18.3 million, our assumptions are about 131 students, and we're expecting $10.1 million in circuit breaker funding. That's up about $1 million from where we're now. We're also in this, sorry, there's missing a zero here, $2.5 million of circuit breaker carry forward. So in total, about $12.6 million to be offsetting that 18.3. So the budget book should look like it's about approximately $5.7 million. So if you think to yourself, oh, 5.7 is not so high, this number is at 18.3. So it is a little bit, I just want to kind of just be really open about it. The gross number is at 18.3. We use this carry forward and the circuit breaker funding, and as do most districts, to essentially lower that in that operating budget. But the true cost is this higher number. And, kind of trying to pin this 18.3 number down is a challenge. I think it's a challenge for every district, and many districts, I think, are experiencing the same thing. There's many, many smaller districts. I talk to business managers, much, much smaller districts, and they will tell me year after year, this number is going up $1 million gross per year. So this is a budget buster, and imagine a much smaller district. So this is a budget buster for many districts. The rates that out-of-district schools can place is what's set by the OSD. I think I put this chart in here in terms of our over time. I'm sorry if the chart looks a little confusing. The blue is our actually out-of-district cost. The red line is actually the number of students. So the students actually have been going down, or obviously our enrollment has been going down, but I think students have been going down for some time here. Actually, it was even probably before our student enrollment started dropping. I'd like to think that's part of the strength of what we offer here in Newton. I think we've done a nice job with that. But you can also see the yellow line, which is the circuit breaker reimbursement, and particularly starting in 2024, it's starting to rise, kind of precipitously as we experienced that 14% rate increase, which really impacted FY25. That went from about 14.3 to about 16.3. So it was about a $2 million increase, just that 14% increase. But we then started getting those reimbursements back. There was a question about has it kind of our net cost changed? And if you look at this, it's varied over time. I've got some history going back even quite a ways. There were some periods in time where the state was actually only reimbursing circuit breaker at about 55 to 60%. That was very, very challenging for many, many districts. There was a big outcry at that time that they've got to fund it at a higher percentage. Dr. Nolan spoke a little bit about kind of some of the funding, some of the ideas that the superintendents have to really try and create that out. So we've been in periods where we've had, at one point, kind of a net cost to us of around $6 million, and growing up to now around $8 million. So it has fluctuated. The goal was to have circuit breaker kind of coming in behind this. But if we're getting approximately 10.1 and our costs are 18.3, that's about an $18 million kind of $8 million, impact to us. Back a number of years ago, we were getting approximately $6 million reimbursement with a $12 million cost. It was around $6 million. So what we've done, though, which has kind of confused the issue, is now, though, starting around 2021, is we started to rely then on this carry forward balance. So it's kind of masked our issue here. So we've kind of basically, rather than doing reductions or finding other things, we've started to use both that current year and that past year to basically make up that difference, if you will.
Just an exhibit from today's mail. This is a letter from the Cotting School today where we have out-of-district students. So Casey and Liam have forecasted the costs that are in this budget, but today we get a notice about next year that the Cotting School is going to reconstruct their program and price. So it will be higher than what we were told for the purchase of this budget. So you can kind of take a peek at that. We get one of these every month from someone else, and they do it every year. So it's a very unregulated place in the state, which is why the Superintendent's Association is really taking that on. So what they do is they call you to a meeting called a purchasers meeting, and you have to attend virtually, and you basically can't really protest because they have you over a barrel. The students are already there. They increase the tuition, and it's over and above what the tuition rate is that has been set by the state. and they have the right to do that anytime they need to. It was infuriating during COVID. We couldn't hire teachers post-COVID. These folks were giving signing bonuses and then going back to the districts and saying, give us more money for this reconstruction. So really upsetting. I just want to make sure, one question came in late in the day today about, costs have gone up from 2021 to 2027, and the reimbursements were sort of keeping pace, but now they're not. Can you talk about the fluctuations in state reimbursements? Because that is another place we're over a barrel. If the state doesn't come up to its promised expectation for reimbursement, districts foot the bill.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, I mean, we're certainly at the mercy of whatever the state legislation puts forward in terms of their budget, in terms of circuit breaker funding. They have been funding the 75%. The transportation has been something, though, I think that they've had a more difficult time funding, kind of fitting into that piece. They've got competing interests as well, but I know that this is something that they're struggling to kind of put in fund into their budget, but it's significant. Chapter 70 is another piece. I mean, that is a whole other topic for different time, but that's typically a pretty low amount, maybe 2 to 3% increases that the city can expect to receive in the Chapter 70 funding. It's basically now come down to we're a minimum aid district due to the wealth, and it might, I think right now it's slated at $75 per student. They've been in this $150 per student, but they've kind of changed from the formula. So that is what it is. But yeah, we're at the mercy. And I think what I was talking about before, Dr. Nolan, was that, we were at a point where we were around $6 million net, and that's grown to maybe $7 or $8 million, of our budget. But you can see on the yellow line there, it has been increasing, and we're expecting it to increase. What would be unfortunate is if you have a year, and this is where if that 18.3, if that number is closer to 18.7 or 18.9 in the circuit breaker, because it's trailing, you'd be then needing to find that money somehow to make up in FY27. So they're only going to give you that money that one time, and it's based on the previous year. So you then can make it up, but basically you have to wait for that next year. In an ideal world, and again, I know we're not an ideal world, many districts actually, the money that they receive this year, so if we receive $9.1 million this year, they know they're going to get that money. That's actually what they budget. You're allowed to carry forward that full year. That's actually what they budget for next year as their offset. They know they've got that. That's secure. It's a secure piece. We budget as a carry forward, just a piece of that, and then we have to bank on what, our assumption of what we're going to get on that. So it would be something that I think, I challenge myself and I challenge the committee to think about, and I know you already think about ways, how can we reverse this over time? I don't think it's something you can do very quickly. In terms of our circuit breaker carry forward, I've revised the assumption down. In fact, that's actually, hurting us in some ways. It was $3,350,000 going into the FY26 budget, and this is $2.5 million. Now, you're aware we're in a tight fiscal situation right now. I'm worried just to get to 2.5 million. I've got to get to zero first. I've reported already fiscally that I'm there. We've got 2 reimbursements on transportation. I reported $600,000. 2 reimbursements are going to get us there. So we're now in this purchasing and hiring freeze. We're going to continue that for the remainder of the year. Obviously, we're allowing some purchasing to go on and certainly some mandatory, staffing. But this is really, I can tell you, when Dr. Nolan is looking at every position, we've got every vacancy, we're looking at this. We're not going to approve it. And I think if there's anything that comes our way, I'm sure she's probably going to bring to you folks as well for approval. So that in itself is really going to bend the curve, I think, for us. I can't tell you right now. I'm happy to do a projection in terms of where we're going to end. But I can tell you right now, we will be positive at the year end. I don't have that projection in terms of what we need to do. But getting back to that circuit breaker carry forward, that's something I think to try and tackle, and how can we reduce the reliance of that over time.
Ask it now.
Are you done with the presentation?
I'm almost done. I'm sorry, I'm longer than I thought. I can speed through this. Transportation, I think most of you folks know this. So this is yellow bus transportation, approximately $3.4 million. We are transporting almost 4,500 students in the city of Newton. So that's both students on vans and students through our yellow buses. We have more than 4,000 yellow bus passes. It's been an area we've increased. We have 34 in-district buses and 8 of our Boston buses. We actually share those Boston buses to actually do some routes internally, and that actually really helps us out as well. I'm also happy to say, and many of you, I think many were not there, but the private school busing piece has really minimized the amount of what we've had to do. We were transporting 130 or so students, transporting about 3 to 5 students now. And they're basically being able to ride within the existing routes that we've got near one of our neighborhood schools. So it's really made a difference for us. That's one of the efficiency pieces. Rather than adding, Regina Moody was looking for potentially 2 buses. We haven't needed to do that. So that's been helpful. I think the big piece, I would say, two things to know. The city did fund $25,000. We have a gentleman by the name of Richard Labrie. He's a transportation consultant. He is on board. That's been funded by the city. He actually came in a few years ago and did an efficiency study for us. He deemed that we were efficient, which is good, but he is also going to help us potentially with going out to bid as well. So the bid for next year is really going to be a critical piece for us. We've experienced only one vendor in the past, and we've experienced high rates of increase. So that's something I think for 2028, I don't need to talk about it right now, but something for 2028 to really be aware of. There's some other competitors, I think, in the market that I do want to explore. So it'd be interesting to see.
You have a new inspector general at the state level who met with the Superintendent's Association. This is a frustration across the state. Everybody getting only one vendor. It feels a little unusual. We don't have competitive pricing. So I do want to report that early bidding superintendents since the Inspector General's audit of transportation, and I can share that report with you. It's very long and it's a lot, but basically he sort of turned some sunshine onto the problem, and our superintendent friends are getting more bids. So I'm hoping that's our future.
Yeah, I would say to me, it would be successful even if we just got 2 bids. Hopefully they're going to be competitive. I've talked about some of these other ones. Obviously, looking for land would be ideal. That actually would help us in terms of attracting a vendor, but that's not an easy thing to do, Newton. I know.
Anyone have parking spots for us, for the buses? That's an appeal.
Yeah. Just a couple of last pieces I'll go through here. In terms of grants, approximately $8.9 million. That actually doesn't include the circuit breaker funding. So just to be clear about that. The federal grant, that's mostly the special education IDA grant and the title grants, $4 million in state funding and $270,000 or so in private grants. A lot of our grant funding is basically awarded on entitlement grants. We have gotten some word potentially Title I, there could be some reduction upwards of 10%. We're in the $450,000 to $500,000 range for Title I funding. It's going to be a $45,000 hit to us if we didn't get that. So at that, we need to think about what, how that would impact. We've got, I believe, two Title I schools right now, Lincoln Elliott and Bigelow. So that might have an impact on those schools if they did not come through. And then certainly, and I think there's still more to come, but very excited about this career and technical education grant. That would be very excited for us in terms of staffing and adding some programming potentially to Newton South. So, let's see. Food services, again, I won't read this. Amy Mistro is really doing amazing stuff, and Chartwells is doing great stuff. We switched out from a vendor named Whitson's. That was not easy to do. We've transitioned. They have to go through a whole labor piece to go through that. Our participation from a number of years ago when I started was probably in the low 30s. We're over 50% right now. I will say that's partly Chartwells. That's also partly the free meals. So free meals for families really, and for families really makes a difference. It's a free, I should say it's a free breakfast and a free lunch. Should be known. Second lunches or any a la carte things you do have to pay. So I was one of those guys that wanted to have more food, and so I would have had to have paid to go get that second meal. But the first meal is free for all of our students, which I think is fantastic. That's certainly something that we want to do. It should be known, as part of our proposal here in any event, we are planning to add 15 minutes after the bell. I think this is something that Aisha spoke a little bit about in terms of, and that was something that we were cited on. We're going to, adding that time, I think it will be critical for us in terms of then having the lunch opportunities.
Liam, there was one question that didn't make it into any of your documents.
Yeah.
That's okay. Other districts who use Chartwells do collection of uneaten food, those types of practices. Why not here? Can it be part of a future contract? the person said, I'm just trying to think through staffing implications. So there would be staffing implications to that. And can it be part of a future contract in some way?
Yeah, so we've actually begun. We've actually started this. So Amy Mistro and team, and there's a sustainability working group, have actually begun this, and they are doing a composting. We actually do, I believe, have a vendor coming in to take food now. I don't know if it's at all of our schools. I can report back.
I think this is
Back with-
uneaten food.
Oh,
So
uneaten
not food
Okay,
scraps.
not food scraps. Okay, so that's something we could look at. And from Amy's perspective, who's running, kind of helping, she thought there would be a cadre of volunteers we'd need to be able to do that. If there's a vendor out there, my sense is there'd be a cost for us to come, which would impact, potentially the food service program. But if there's uneaten food and there's a ability to do it, we'll look at it. Okay, source for the small font. These are just kind of some of the questions I think through, continuing our long-range planning for these buildings, unanticipated student needs, some of the risk questions I think we posed to ourselves. Certainly that added district tuition, Casey brought forward to us a higher number in terms of what, could be some risk there. There's a number of students that are placed out. I put in one of the answers, the fluidity in 2025. There was approximately 28 students that were placed in, but there was about 14 or 15 students that were actually not just aged out, just were exited out of the out of district programs as well. So there's actually quite a bit of movement in those programs. So this is a little bit of a risk calculation in terms of that. So with that, the last thing, just kind of in terms of the schedule, typically have put that out there. This is what we've got kind of coming up next, and open to some questions.
Start with the mayor, then Victor, Jonathan, Jason.
So I have a lot of questions, but I'll try not to ask too many this evening. I just want to understand, first of all, you have in the budget book, page 59, you have proposed budget by responsibility center. That's human resources, and it has 3 different types of substitute: long-term, ISS, and the outside substitute program. When I look at a individual school budget by cost center, I'm also seeing substitutes in there as well. Is that just a duplicate of what's in here?
That's right. So that's a rolled up version. We then spread that by what we call by location. So we kind of have a number of roll ups that we do.
So I just want to understand for clarity. So if I looked here and looked out at all the different schools, I'd get all the different schools added together, which would be each number in this line.
That's right. That should total
I mean,
out.
we've been through this before, but I think we all know we are spending far more money on substitutes than we did even 5 years ago. That is a problem for this district. And frankly, it's not good for kids. It's not good for parents. It's not good for the staff that's in the schools when other people are absent. And I know the superintendent is looking at this extraordinarily carefully. But I do think it's worthy of public mention. This is a huge cost driver for us, and it should be something that's avoidable. So we have a lot of work to do in this area, and it's going to be multifaceted. But the public needs to be aware of that this is a driver that is that is way beyond what we saw 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I just want to put that out there for public consumption. I do have a bunch of other questions if I could. I am looking at page 85 of the budget book. And I'm seeing actually fairly small changes in the number of FTEs from 26 to 27. I'm looking at aid special education, aid specialists. But very significant increases in the cost. Is that due to contractual negotiations or something else?
So there's a few different page numbers. There's what is it labeled?
Look, page 85, line 363 and 364.
Liam, it'll be page 92 in the PDF.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just
Thank
going
you.
for
This
this
is
Yeah.
page
given.
85
Yeah.
and your digital is
Yeah,
92.
I can see that. This is under the per pupil,
It is aid
Responsibility.
special education and aid specialist under student services, aids and tutoring.
It's the Student Services Responsibility Center.
okay, yeah, I'm struggling to get there. Thank you very much. I mean, any of these costs here basically are gonna be basically, and, steps and
It's
steps in COLA.
20% increase. in
That
each
was the
category.
last contractual negotiations with the NTA. This was a centerpiece of the negotiations with the NTA.
But we
So they-
implemented cost increase in the prior 2 years. This is the last year of the contract.
They dropped certain steps and lanes, and it depends on who comes into those positions. You know what I mean? Like they dropped the bottom steps so that more people are at the higher
That
steps.
was done 2 years ago, right?
It was, but we were not fully hired for paras 2 years ago in the way that we are now.
Sorry.
Well, it says here that we budgeted actual 204 and we're going up to
Yeah.
211.
Mhm.
Sorry, yeah, that's right. So
Yep.
this is the you're seeing the 211 FTE and then 207. So this is showing around 13 FTE increase. So the total increase here. So this is actually attributable, I'm sorry, to COLA steps and these
It
FTE
would be
increases.
Very helpful when you do a revised version of this, if we
Yep.
could see FTEs for 2025 too in each of these categories.
Sure.
So moving on, and I promise I won't go through every one of these tonight, colleagues. If I go to the Horace Mann budget, for example,
This is by location.
page 133. You with me?
I think I'm with you,
Okay,
yes.
so, elementary math specialist, 2026, 2.0, 114,000, same number of people, $127,000 increase.
Hmm.
What does that mean?
It looks like we've got an FTE issue here. It looks like one of them was 1 FTE in 2025, and it should be 2 in 2027.
I guess I just don't understand it. You have a similar issue with, elementary building aids. It was 0.8 in each year and it's gone up 51%.
Yeah. Take a look.
You talking about the same page, Mark?
Yep.
Mayor?
Same page. You don't have to answer this now.
Yeah, I mean, the
Mr.
increase,
Humphrey,
yeah,
but I
yep.
think that you've got some real issues here. And then if you look at English language learning, you have 1.9, each of those, this 2026 and 2027, but $105,000 decrease. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I can take a look at that one. I think basically that one may actually be being covered by our tuition line.
Mhm.
We've got an ESL.
No, but even at 200, at 2.0, you would be paying each of those English language learning teachers $140,000 a year, which I think is probably more than we typically pay our English language learners, teachers.
Our salary scale is getting up there, but
Yeah, it depends on their degree level.
I'll just point out, you have similar issues in Pierce. Bottom line is, I don't want to go through this all.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
for each of the buildings, you need to go back through respectfully, very carefully, and see why the numbers are not matching.
sounds good.
Okay, I don't know why, but otherwise, it's very difficult for us to really understand what the changes in building operations are. Last question for you. We've been given some data on Ainger and how well that's performed, and it's really wonderful, the work that's been done there. But when I look at the number of aides that you utilized for that analysis That's not what was in last year's budget book is the number of aides for the school. So I'd really like to see this last year's budget book, not this year's. But I'd like to understand how they compare.
We received your question earlier today, so we can answer that for you. I need to show you a few pages because.
Is there something, is the budget book incorrect or is the
Well,
calculation?
it's just you have to combine two lines. It's not that line. There's one other line on the next page that gives you the 17 FTE that we're discussing. And that we are now reduced down to 8 at Ainger.
On the next page of last year's budget book?
Correct.
We can talk offline because I'm not seeing it, but that's probably
Yeah,
my ignorance.
No, it's fine. We're happy to show you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm all set, Madam Chair.
I actually have the numbers if you want looking at
Answer
them.
this.
Yeah, not that question, but your earlier question regarding the FTE for the aides, special education aides specialists. It's also in that budget book. You probably just missed it, but 201.8 FTE in 25, 181.5 the other aide specialists in 25.
Yep. Got that.
Thank you. Victor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first I want to echo what the mayor said from a slightly different angle in terms of the substitute being an issue. And obviously there's many multifactorial reasons why this happens that leads to teacher absences, but it was recently announced in the public that based on arbitrator's decision, some teachers that have over 25 years of service could get anywhere around 65 sick days theoretically, which is, more than about a third, if you would have, let's call it 200 working days that's out there. And right, for context, right, I think the average full-time employee in corporate environments gets 8 sick days for an entire year. Now, I'm not saying the educator's job is very different. It's very difficult. There's a lot that's put on them. So I'm not begrudging them the ability to take sick days is important, but this is part of a much larger issue that I'm very concerned about is why if we can get down the road, and I mean, this is a community thing, not just a group of people here, how we resolve this issue of the teacher absences that are driving a lot of these substitute needs. So that I'm just concerned that this is just continue to blow up over time. All right. Anyway, off of that that issue, Liam, thank you as always. This is the benefits. I have 3 somewhat smaller questions on the benefits chart. Forgive me because I don't have page numbers here, but it's the one where you break out health insurance, et cetera. There's one line item that says vehicle use reimbursement.
Sure.
At a high level, what is that about? And who? Yeah.
In the contracts for administrators, principals, there's typically and some it'd be people that are traveling throughout the district get between $800 and $1,200 a year in terms of it. No one in the district is provided a car, so it's just a vehicle. But this is basically a reimbursement for the travel within the district.
Got it. Not something that I normally would want to get rid of, but it's if we're hard pressed, that might be something that pushed. I know.
So Victor, it's things like I'm a teacher. I travel between 3 buildings, that kind of thing. Mhm.
Yeah, I get it. It's again, not to use a corporate analogy, but
Yeah. Also in the contract.
that's the harder part that I'm
Yeah.
noodling in my head. Fair enough. So thank you. And then Mr. Hurley, the second one is around the utilities. Oh, this is just a side question. So I'm not sure we even get to the situation, but I love the fact that we added over the years the electric panels at South, right?
Yes.
Do we ever sell back to the grid if we have excess for whatever reason, or do we never get to that stage?
I don't believe that we get to that stage. I believe the city actually, in some cases, there's a lot to these solar panels, and actually it'd be great to have actually the city sustainability director, Sam Nyman, join us at some point. There are some panels that are what are called in front of the meter and behind the meter. Some of the ones that are in front of the meter actually are some benefits to the city as well. They actually get some credits. I don't believe that we're selling back to the grid.
Got it.
But I'd love him to confirm that. That's my understanding.
Thank you. And then last question, this is regarding the out-of-district tuition question. Is it possible to, so this is very helpful. I did not realize this 2089 day, checkpoints that sort of change the the eligibility for or the categorization of them as long-term subs, long-term teacher subs, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that goes, I don't like this idea because it disrupts the classroom experience for the student. There's a part of me that says, is there a way to, within the parameters of what's allowed, say, before somebody crosses into that, let's say 90-day threshold, we're required to hire, let me put it this way. If Precision gives us 2 different individuals to serve that role, does that reset the count, or does it essentially cross the individual and align with the role?
So the situation I was describing is actually typically an NPS employee for the long-term sub or long-term sub teacher. So they
Oh, I
wouldn't
see.
actually be a precision sub. So that's the one that would be benefit eligible. None of the precision staff are benefit eligible. So that would be somebody, and if somebody was going to be out beyond 90 days, at that point, they're typically out maybe for an extended leave. Many people wouldn't actually be paid at that point. Up through that 60 to 90 days, if it's a maternity, paternity, something like that, they've typically got 60 days. So this is a period where that kind of that middle piece exists. But if then somebody decides for whatever reason they may stay out for the remainder of the year, that's when this long-term teacher sub, what's called, and that's the one that's put on a bachelor or a master's step 1 with benefit eligibility.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was trying to figure out if we cap it at 89, but go to somebody else before we get there. But now you've clarified for me that that's
And
not.
it seems to be a pretty standard practice with a lot of districts that kind of after a 90th day, I think it becomes more of almost what's called a seasonal or temporary employee, kind of kicking into something that's longer term.
Makes sense. Thank you for taking the thoughts for me.
Jonathan?
Liam, when we were talking about the solar panel installations, is there, who pays for that? Does the school system pay for that? Or does the city pay for that? Where does that come from? for
That's a
the
good
installs?
question. So we do not, the school department does not pay for the installation of that. The city,
Okay.
as far as I understand, enters something called a purchase power agreement. It's relatively complicated. We're not a party to it. We're a benefactor, I guess I would say, to that. So
Okay.
some of those agreements I think are somewhat complicated. I think that these are things that are basically built out, almost going to contracts for 20 plus years, providing services. Ameresco is one of the major providers for us. We've also had another company called Select Energy, but Ameresco has been a major provider. They're based out of Natick and do some really great work for us. But I'd love to, as I said, if this is something of interest, I think we could get some better answers than I'm giving you.
I welcome that conversation at the right time. I just, the clarity here for me is that installing solar panels is not part of the proposed maintenance and capital expenditures budget that you've put forward. And so thank you for that. I get it. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Jason?
Thanks, Liam. I think it's a lot of complexity under this presentation, so thank you for putting it all together. And I think across the buckets that I want to focus on, there's a couple of themes that are in common. Number one, they're a little bit the story of this year, right?
Yeah.
Health insurance, utilities. There's a lot of categories that are just growing 5 percentage points or more beyond what they've been doing historically. And that's why a lot of the other conversations are tough and tricky.
Yes.
So the other theme through these is I know that you've had longstanding and continue to have collaborative interactions with the city to try to look forward into the future and manage these. And the Suzuki, opportunity that was raised is an example of that. So I want to kind of jump into a few of them in a little more detail. Health insurance. I mean, it's almost a quarter of our increase this year from benefits. And it's not the first year. It was 11% last year, as you said, and 9% this year. My understanding is the city is self-insured. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So are Newton Public Schools, though, at risk? Like if actual health insurance costs come in, we're putting in 9% in the budget for that line item, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
But if the increase ends up being 10%, are we at risk for that, or is the city insuring us for that? And the fee is that 9% increase?
From my perspective, a relationship with Maureen, so they have what's, I call it a medical trust fund. If Maureen says that the rates are going to be, 9%, and so let's say that means that a plan is going to go up to, a full scale plan is going to go to $38,000 total. of which the employer, us, pays approximately 75% of that. I've not been in a situation where she would say mid-year, oh, by the way, it's going up to 40. If she did, I believe that she would say, we're going to reimburse you for this some way. So there's risk in everything, but I think that she works with a consultant, and I'm happy, so the mayor may.
We're not gonna, let's hope it does not happen,
Right.
but just like if it's 8%, not 9%, you're not gonna turn over the savings to the city. There's some risk here for everybody, okay?
Well, I actually didn't understand that. So if it's lighter than we expect, does that accrue to the schools or to the city?
No, I've not. The only time that I will say this, so that, and if it was lighter, that money would, my understanding is that any money would goes into this medical trust fund. We have had probably in my 10 years here, what's called, and this gets a little complicated, if there's been an excess of funding in that trust fund, they've done what's known as a health holiday, where there's been a pay period where the employee and the employer, Newton Public Schools, does actually not pay that portion. And for us, that could be like $1.5 million in just one payroll, that we actually would not pay that. So if there was ever a point that balance actually grew to a point that they were comfortable having a balance, that was large enough. We've not been in this situation for many years, given the rates and things that I think have gone on. There has been a couple of times that they were in a situation where there was more funds they needed. We got the benefit on the school side, and employees actually got a benefit as well.
Thank you.
So,
That's really helpful.
yeah.
So if I'm playing it back, if there is a surplus, that's going into this fund, and there's some mechanism for how that would be dealt with, not necessarily in year, but over time.
And and again, I don't want to promise that this would happen anytime soon, but that is when there was a surplus, I guess, deemed by them a surplus, there was that piece to it. Again, there was no promise, and I don't think there's any promise going forward that would happen.
If there's a surplus, that also affects the rate that's going to be charged for the following year. And there have been at least a couple times, it's been a while, when the trust fund is built up sufficiently, and it's usually a couple, 2.5 months of premiums, don't remember exactly, when they've said, okay, we have too much money, so no one's going to pay for this 2-week or month-long period. Money goes back to that's savings for the schools, that's
right.
savings for the city. Don't plan on it.
Yeah, that's not been the environment. So I was really trying to understand the mechanism versus understand where we've been. I am, the mayor has been communicating about budgets, not just for this year, but for the subsequent ones. A big part of the story, again, is going to be, where do we end up with healthcare? I'm curious, do we have communication from the consultant work that does from the city on what the tea leaves are saying about 2028, 2029 for health insurance percent increases?
I think if I haven't been in a position, I think if I asked Ms. Lemieux some probing questions, I think she would share that. She has direct, my focus certainly has just right now been FY27, but I do need to think about that. I think, as the mayor is suggesting, I think she's worried about the future and what these increases are coming. This doesn't feel like a 1 or 2 year blip that we're in. I think there'd be certainly some open dialogues.
Good trends, and then you'll get a good idea what our health insurance costs are going to be. I mean, when we get information on this, we'll share that as soon as possible. It's a common interest. Everybody should understand what we're foreseeing. Not my professional expertise, obviously, and I think it's very difficult to project 1.5 years or 2 years out.
Yeah. Okay, I think, I know one of the efforts is to be thinking about the multi-year plan. This is obviously a very important component to that. So I'm really glad for that collaboration. I think it would be good to at least get the consultant's best read of the tea leaves, acknowledging that's probably as good as it is going forward, because it will help us at least guess how much pressure will be on the next time around.
Sure.
Utilities is a similar story where it's really popped up. I'll just be very brief here. There was some helpful information that you provided, breaking out delivery and supply.
Yeah.
I think that both delivery and supply have embedded in those the difference between usage and rates.
Yes.
And so it's not clear to me how much of our increase, which was substantive this time around, 19% increase, almost all within electricity,
Yes.
was usage versus rates. And my understanding, just again, looking at stuff online is probably most of that is raised, but the reason I'm focused on it now is more like, again, looking forward and trying, that's a harder one to read the tea leaves, probably even more than health insurance,
Yeah.
given everything. But I think it would be helpful for us to be thinking about those two components separately.
Yeah, yeah, and
Especially as we think about the go forward projections.
certainly, yeah. And we've got some information on usage in this, and I think we've got some usage, but again, talking with Sam and Owino, looking at this, they really thought it was really the rate driving that cost. But again, I think we've got some usage, so we can, there's an exhibit in here, it talks about some of our history in terms of that usage. But again, I go back, I feel, given the delivery of these buildings, given the more air conditioning, usage from my perspective is probably likely going to go up as well. Hopefully not dramatically, but I think it is going to likely go up again. The benefit, though, that gas portion is going to go down. So that is actually, so you may have, we may have bigger increases here, but you've also hopefully equally, and maybe they're larger increases as well with gas. That's going to kind of have to see how we play that out and model that out.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then I'm just glad, just very briefly, that you highlighted the Suzuki collaboration and effort. And yes, I am the one who believes we should be purists on this.
Yes.
And wherever that belongs, if it's building fees, et cetera, that's where it goes, because we don't want to see the change next time
That's
on
true.
utilities, and
That's true.
wonder if it's because of utilities or the Suzuki rental revenue going.
It's a great point, because if Suzuki is truly for 1 year, the next year, that there's $100,000 actually being added, or 50,000 in gas, 50,000 utilities, and added back into that budget. So
We should, in my view, be purists on those buckets, so that we're not scratching our heads
Right.
and making adjustments next time around.
Yeah.
But I am very glad for the collaboration. I do think when we're under pressure, the offsets in a broader sense are really valuable.
Yeah.
And then finally, on out of district, you mentioned 75% is the reimbursement rate, and had
Yeah.
some responses to my question on that. And I believe we're looking at last year. So like for the 27 budget, the offset is looking at 2026
yes,
costs and applying a rate.
yes.
But how do I get from the 16.5, if I've got the numbers right, in out of district 2026 to the 10.1? It's
Yeah.
not quite 75%.
No, it's the formulas actually. You can't really do that. So there is a DESI circuit breaker reimbursement cost calculator. So we actually have to do by student, by IEP, put in all these costs. And in fact, they actually call it net eligible claims. They actually will kick out some claims they don't deem. And then secondly, if our costs for a BT, let's say, are $60,000 for a year, they actually use their rates. They have their prescribed rate and what their hourly rate is for that BT.
So
So you,
75% for some of it, what
that's
some
right.
nuances
It's
important to
it's
listen to.
75% of what
They think is a good rate,
That's
which is
right.
much lower than what our BTs make.
That's right. So it's based on their formula of how they spread that out. So it's
It's not unlike Chapter 70, where
No.
they're giving you a percentage, but it's on some made-up numbers of what the
Yeah.
That's
actual
right.
costs are.
yes.
I thought it's excellent that we're looking already into competitive bids for transportation. I
Yeah.
know that's for the future, but that's
Yes.
really fingers crossed on that. And yeah. Sorry for the pause.
Sorry, Ben.
Thanks, Liam. Appreciate it. This is helpful. One of the options that the superintendent put on the table, she disliked it, but she put it on the table, was taking 500,000 out of charter maintenance.
Oh.
Can you paint us a picture of what happens if we take $500,000 out of it?
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
I think we have a long tradition of doing every year.
Yeah, so we have done this. Several times, and it is similar to like the Suzuki piece. I guess we've actually done two things. There has been, I think, potentially 1 or 2 years where we actually did lower the charter maintenance by $500,000. Excuse me, we did not lower the charter maintenance by $500,000, but we said we are going to not do summer projects, thereby freeing up money in the budget to help us during the year for some overages that we were expecting. So what we were doing at the time, though, we were in a time of doing a significant number of smaller jobs working with the city. We were doing little roof projects, we were doing bathroom projects, we were doing a number of summer projects basically on city one-time funding. And we said, rather than lowering it, because the really hard thing to do that I've seen here is that to restore that $500,000 is really difficult. And we're going to say, why did we do it? Because it's then going to be competing with everything else that we want to do back into the budget. So from a momentary perspective, it feels like okay, let's just do that. But when you're then facing FY28, where we're looking at a budget, we may be looking at a budget gap, and then getting nothing out of it, you're adding $500,000 and truthfully probably some inflation with that. That 500,000 should probably go up a little bit. You've got to add that back in. It's eating into whatever else you can ask. So it's kind of a trap, I guess, is the way that I have kind of experienced it, that it helps us short term and then it comes back to bite us a little bit. If there was a way that you could, or we could think about saying, we're not doing it, but we're really going to not do something in the budget, it keeps that flexibility for us to use that funding someplace else. That may not be a great idea. This was something that we had done at one point, though, that we just made a conscious effort. I had to talk to David Stickney. He didn't like it. He wants to do summer projects. Said, you're going to do 100,000. You're only going to do life safety summer projects, not doing bathrooms this year, not doing flooring, not doing lighting projects, things like that. That one, at least it did not cut the budget, but it actually still kept that budget intact, but we basically freed up some cushion. We knew we had some cushion in that year. So I don't know if that, it's just an example of something that we had done. I know that I'm maybe one of the ones that suggested you can do this, because this has been an area that rather than, funding, we want to do other things, but truly that's a recurring cost. So, I mean, the basic rule is ideally you'd try to find a one-time cost to use, and to me, honestly, with you, charter maintenance is not one time.
Okay, I get it. So money is fungible, and
Yep.
this is a place where we should be doing it every year, and we can make the money move somewhere else. Living here in the land of bad options, what this means tangibly is summer projects to fix bathrooms. Tell me about what else is not going to happen.
Sure.
If this is gone.
So he has a pretty detailed list of what he does. In fact, he started in January, goes around and meets with all the principals. And they will give him a laundry list of, typically, let's say they give him 10 items. He can typically only fund 2 or 3 items. He'll try and distribute this around to different schools. If there's a school, that is getting replaced in the next year, we're certainly not going to spend any real money on it.
I'm just going to read them last year's list. Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So were things like second floor bathroom upgrades at Ainger, the redo of the guidance suites at Bright for the Bright program at North and South, so that we could actually make those counseling programs happen. A lot of bathroom redos. Boys TR across from 606, those are like door swings and like this in between the stall replacement, that kind of thing. Let's see, like there's a list of about, from last year, 125 different things that were proposed to be done. I think in my first superintendent's memo of the year, I told you how many we closed out. I think it was like 400 different tasks across the whole system, including back ordered work and new projects, which is these. The problem for us with some of the free cash we obtained to do some of these projects last year, as you remember Josh Morris on camera saying that we couldn't even go out to bid for them, even though we received the free cash. So there's those kind of summer projects, and then there's these summer projects. These are the ones that are baked into the budget.
Got it. Okay.
New lighting, modular corridor, paint all metal colors in Mason Rice. Like these are, those kind of things. New carpet, handicapped accessibility pieces like buffers for hard of hearing when a new student moves in who has those accommodations, that kind of thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamika? Thanks, Alicia. So I agree 100% with Jason's observation vis of the Suzuki School. I think we ought to be purist in terms of how we codify that revenue. and not use it as an offset, even though it functionally is. The other thing I wanted to talk about is sorry, I'm having a moment. What did I want to say? Oh, regarding the rates. So you're trying to be as accurate as possible for kind of predicting the utility rate charges. And we do have some history that we can look back to try to capture and quantify what those rates and usages, not the rates, but the usage might be. I'm wondering if you did any type of analysis with Zervis and Cabot and Ainger, where we looked at the adjustment of usage from existing or prior school to new build, and how that might help us to really like hit that number on the head and the most accurate.
Yep. So we actually, great comment. We actually did do that. I think what was different is that our first all-electric building was actually NECP and now 150 Jackson. So Ainger, Zervis, Cabot are actually still a mix of gas and electric. So the best, ideally, we would have an all-electric kind of elementary size. We've got 150 Jackson, but we've only got 4 or 5 months now of usage. We've got NECP, which is about it's about half the size of what these elementary schools, but we've got that what that usage is. So we looked at those as two comparisons to try to look at what the rates would be and what that usage would be for these buildings. So we've done that. Ideally, each year that goes along, we're actually going to have more. But we looked at the historicals, and I think the piece that you talked about, we're looking at these. Actually, we're experiencing these rate increases now. That's actually kind of also why we're projecting these rate increases for next year as well. So we're experiencing, I think, as Jason talked, and I put that in fiscal ops. We're experiencing several $100,000 increases right now in these pieces. I'm happy to go back with the team and just take a look at these usage rates and look at these just to make sure, is there anything there? Is there anything that we can learn from these? We try to be as conservative, but still at the same point, making sure that we actually properly budget for these items.
Thank you. I think that'd be helpful.
Sure.
The other thing I'm wondering is, I know that we do bulk purchases of certain utilities. For this particular increase, though, are we not able to do the bulk purchases of our electricity or gas, or is it just that the rates increases are such that it's not enough, it's not sufficient?
It's not quite sufficient. So the bulk purchases, to my understanding, basically the city tries to go in and lock the supply rate, the delivery rate. You can't get that locked in, and so that's where
Open market.
you're on the open market. In fact, we're seeing monthly variations. So the bills are actually typically fluctuating up right now on that. We have approximately a 12.5 per kilowatt hour, cent per kilowatt hour usage on our electricity rates. But there is something going on. And ISO New England Market is even looking at that and even making adjustments to the rate that we thought we had. They can go in and make adjustments to even that 1.125 rate that we have as well. So even that rate is upwards of actually 0.15 cents right now per kilowatt hour. So even the rate that we thought was locked in is actually getting increases, and then we're feeling it on the delivery rate really particularly.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have one circuit breaker question, as I always,
It's all right.
lucky I only have one. So on transportation, where we see the reimbursement rate fluctuate, I know on tuitions, it's been 75%
Yeah.
pretty steadily. What are we budgeting? What percent are we budgeting?
So right now we're budgeting the 75%, which is again is some risk. You might I always feel like I'm the risk taker here. I'm really not. We got 75%. So last year I think they published approximately 60 to 61%. We ended up getting the 75%. They did that again where they published, I think, in the 60s this year. Information that I got, Mass Budget Policy Center and my MASBO sources have said that the governor has docketed money to be put forward to fund the transportation, fully fund the transportation. We literally got last year's payment on like June 28th. right before the fiscal year ended. I mean, talk about sweating this out. So 2 years in a row at 75% on the transportation. Again, assuming this hits this year, assuming that my information is accurate, that was the assumption I was making for next year as well. So 75% circuit breaker. There's a lot. I know that this has been an issue, legislatively. There's been a lot of talk about fully funding this. This was kind of the promise that was made for the Student Opportunity Act. So, but there is certainly risk in that. I don't know if this is something that they just do. DESE might do this as a kind of a protective measure to keep it low, see how things go, and then fund. They've done this before, where they call it a fifth quarter payment. So they say, here's your reimbursements. It's $2 million every quarter, and they wait till the end to see, okay, there's some money available, and they'll actually make a payment at the very end. So there is some risk with it, but I feel like the last year and this year we're going to actually hit that mark.
Makes sense. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Superintendent, did you have a?
Yeah, I did. Just because I want you to trust in us. And so I did research the teaching and learning. 11.9%, just for the public, by the way, is $178,000. That's an 11% increase. Last year, we'll start with FY25, and Tamika will remember this. Thrive PD comes up as a day that we have enshrined in the contract. By the time we've done the contract, we don't have any money in the budget for that. So I called in every favor I had in the state, wrote grants, cost $200,000, lots of private vendors. But like you, Mayor, we know we need to bring those things in-house. Can't pay outside people. I can't cash in favors every year. So second year, $200,000 we put into the budget as an ad last year. It is taken out altogether as a free cash ad, never added. So it is not been reimbursed back into when you shored up all the other things, this was not one of them. Liam and I realized this and had to explain it to everyone. So just like you noticed with Stephen had the $150K that was the ad off of the normal budget, all of that was taken into free cash. You get reimbursed for this, but we didn't put the $200K back in. That said, we've now enshrined it in the contract. We are using our own PD, our internal people, to do that. The rates on the contract for professional development stipends or per diem, whatever it is per unit, goes up according to the contract. So that 11% is that combination of having to do that contractually enshrined day and the rates. So it is a free cash tango, as I'll say to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Can I check in on our homework? Because this is what I think we have to do. Usage versus rates in some way would be helpful. Tamika's request on utility reporting, which I saw you write down, Liam. Okay. Essential only adds to the teaching and learning budget rank ordered in terms of what's absolutely necessary within the budget. Somebody asked that. FTEs from FY25 on aides, you'd like to see the side-by-side. Some sort of check on Ainger Horace Mann Pierce for aides because of your question. A professional development plan, what our plan is for the long haul. I think that's everything.
Yeah, just add, Superintendent,
Yep.
I would respectfully suggest that I haven't gone through all the budget yet. I think it would be helpful to go to each school and to just make sure that the numbers are working.
Thank you. The other thing I just want the public to know is I've had a few questions about the questions you submit and the answers. So we'll get those to Lisa to post, the questions that have been asked in all of our meetings so that the public has access to everything that we've shared with the school committee, so that you can see the nature and the cadence and the due diligence that the school committee and the mayor are doing in order to understand the budget. And we, of course, want to share our explanations.
So, Superintendent, this is not critical for budget season per se, and I do want you to have at least 1 hour sleep per day. But
Thank you, Victor.
Generous, right? At some point, it'd be great to see. I think I mentioned this briefly in passing, but I didn't make it explicit. A breakdown of what the major teacher absence categories are, or we used to call it absence excuses in Arlington. But
So reasons for absences?
major reasons for absences over to the extent we have it, last 2-3 years, if we can.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, not urgent, but I think will be helpful soon.
I have a tack on to that
Okay.
request, which is a breakdown of the contracted substitute costs by level.
Okay.
Okay, so we've had our 3 special meetings. We have reviewed every department. We have our budget book. And so I think it's time to go back into problem-solving mode, put our thinking caps on. And to that end, I think an additional request, Dr. Nolan, is should the committee need to direct you to make additional cuts, we'd like to understand what your priorities there would be. That's the wrong way to put it. The least pain going down the
So am I fitting into the mayor's allocation cuts? That's what you want to see?
if you were in to fit into that, yes. So absent some creative solution that we come up with, we would need to be looking at those.
Okay.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Liam.